Well, hello. It is Wednesday. That's right. We are back with another Hammer Away. It is time. It's 4 o'clock. And happy Valentine's Day. I can't even really believe I didn't put that on the graphic right there. But it is Valentine's Day. I hope everybody's having a good one. I got a couple of things to share with our guests today to kind of be icebreakers. The lightning round is first. So let us go ahead and take this thing away, and we will say hello. Mr. Anthony White of Generation Landslide. What's up?
Hey.
How's everything out there today? Pretty good?
Yeah.
Good. Good weather?
That thunder right. I don't know if you hear it that loud on your opening right there, but man, it was blaring through the phone.
Sorry about that.
It's all good.
Trying to shake up my guests a little bit and really get your blood flowing so you're ready to rock.
Wake them up a bit,
shit,
right?
I didn't know this was going to be so dramatic. That's not normal. I'm not too dramatic. I don't like being dramatic, but you know. So has everything calmed down from the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I think so. It was a little crazy there the whole day and the whole night, but
Oh, I bet.
I think by now everybody's long gone.
Are you even interested in any of that?
Yeah, I mean, I am. I'm a big fan of the 49ers, and unfortunately they were on the losing end of it, but
Yeah.
no, it's all good.
Yeah, it sure is. I mean, they beat my Packers. So, but as I like to say, we kind of let it go. I'm not going to
Right,
go so far as to go, we let them win. That's not the point. The point is we
right.
had the opportunities, we let it go. We didn't take it.
Well, that's a
So,
lot better. You know, my Dolphins thought we're going to get in there, but
right.
they fizzled out at the end. Actually, I had a friend that we were hoping that it would be 49ers and the Dolphins, two of our favorite teams here out in Las Vegas. We were like, wow, this is great. But
Not meant to be. Not meant to be. I think right before the pandemic, I hate to bring up that word, but right before that, I went over to Europe and I was hanging with the Wayward Sons and Steel Panther on their tour over there. And we ended up here. I fly all the way to Amsterdam, go to Utrecht, and then we end up going after the show. We ended up at a TGI Fridays watching the Super Bowl.
wow,
Yeah.
that's
How
pretty.
American can you be?
Actually, that's pretty cool.
It was super cool. Don't get me wrong on the experience.
Right.
I would, yeah, no, it's beautiful, but a
People,
TGI
I mean,
Fridays,
but I guess, like Europe now is getting more and more familiar with obviously football because they're bringing it over there now. But
right.
in 2020, did they do that? At that
Yeah,
time, did they? Wow,
yeah,
that's pretty cool.
yeah, yeah. I came back and everything went to hell. It was,
I think that happened for everybody,
it
actually.
did, it did. I went back to work, and like a day later, it's like, oh, go home. We're not coming in. So,
Right.
oh
Yeah.
wow.
Well, the never-ending fun.
Right, right. Now I start every show with my guests. I start with a lightning round. So, which I was actually reading an interview that you did, I think, beginning of last year, and that was almost lightning roundish. As I'm looking at the questions, I'm like, okay, that's this is okay.
Yeah.
But the whole interview was like a little lightning round. I was like, oh, okay.
Oh,
Um,
I don't know if I'll remember any of that, but
oh, you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to worry about that. I got all new stuff.
oh, good.
So, well, I guess we just talked about it, so I don't even have to ask you about how crazy it was for the Super Bowl. Was there any inconvenience for you with all the things that happened there, or is it just another busy day in Vegas?
No, just another busy day. Yeah. We watched it downtown.
Gotcha.
So we were at a bar in downtown Vegas. So it's just crazy as it is anyway.
Right.
Um, you just added a bunch more people to it. That's all it was, really. So you know,
Yeah, yeah, I understand that with being here in St. Louis with the Cardinals World Series stuff, and you
I
just get even regular baseball games, and And when concerts and baseball games happen at the same time, you're like, the hell with it.
Well, I think that's something that they're going to start realizing and figuring out here because, for many years I grew up here and they didn't have
Right.
any like that out here at all. And now all of a sudden they have a pro hockey team, with the possibility of getting a pro baseball team. The Super Bowl was here, are they ready for that? I mean,
It's a lot.
miles and miles and miles is what I heard. And, so it'll take them a little time, but it's pretty exciting that Las Vegas is, some form of a sports place. Nobody ever thought of that.
Right.
Especially.
I think I could say more on it, but I probably won't. It's sometimes it makes me a little suspicious, but that's just me.
Let's not go all the way back to, Pete Rose and all the other crazy things associated with Las
These days, I don't know about you, Anthony, but I think I'm going to end up with arthritis in these fingers real easily.
When it comes to all that kind of stuff, absolutely.
Right.
Yep.
You'd be like, what the hell? I don't know. I was talking a lot about things today.
And we haven't even gotten to the music part yet. There'll be more of those.
We can only hope.
Oh,
everybody's out there planted and oh my God. When?
Right.
So
what he's going to say next. That's what I've been, or I should say.
Who knows? So you mentioned, I'm going to go through these. Our second question has kind of 5 quick answers. So when I was reading this interview, you mentioned there were like 5 bands that you mentioned that are influential to what spurred you forward to do this band.
Sure.
Project. So you mentioned these, and I'm just wondering if you could mention. I'm going to list them again because it wasn't yesterday. But give me your favorite album or track. If some of these bands, maybe you just weren't into the albums, but maybe a track, if that helps. So Grand Funk Railroad.
Grand Funk Railroad for me is like the ultimate all around everything band for me. I mean, as far as songwriting, singing, drums, bass, guitar, songwriting, just everything for me pretty much comes from Grand Funk Railroad with me. So it's really hard to say an individual track as opposed to saying, I could say the E Pluribus Funk album front to back, is one of my all-time favorite ones. The Red record, which is, Grand Funk, which is their second one, is absolutely another one of my favorites. So it's a little tough in regards to them because I hold them personally because they, for many, many, many years, I've loved that band. So
did you see them with Bruce Kulick in the band?
I saw them when they were a 4-piece. I believe they had a guitar player, singer. Gotcha. Bruce was in the band, and it was just Donnie and Mel.
Right.
I still like them. I still appreciate it and everything. And it's a testament to say, look how many guys they had to put up on stage in order to take care of Mark Farner. I mean, and I'm not, I'm not picking sides of anything because I think all 3 of them are great, even, but, just that alone right there, you got one guy who plays keyboard, sings, guitar, harmonica. I mean, everything under the sun. So it's, it is what it is. So,
well, I think in a way they did very well as the 4-piece for a long time. And I think better to do that and cover it well. Again, I'm not looking for anybody to go, screw you. I don't want that. I'm just saying better to make the decision to use 2 people to cover the one guy than to get another guy that doesn't quite cover the part.
Right. it'll stand out more as being a better product or a worse product if you don't cover all the bases
Right.
and make it sound like it's supposed to sound. So
Right.
absolutely, I totally agree with that. Yep.
Right.
And they did a great job. I
That's what
mean,
I've heard.
can't, I can't honestly sit and say that they didn't do a good job.
Hmm.
But for me, it's like seeing Mark Farner by himself. You're going to get all that and you're going to get a great band as well and stuff. But in my heart, when I saw them on the reunion, that to me was like, wow. And that was what, 1998, 99,
Yeah.
whatever that
Yeah.
was. And
Yeah.
that to me was like the ultimate thing right there. So it's
Mm.
hard to beat that.
That's cool. That's cool. I'm glad you got to see that. I wish I would have. That would have been great. I have never seen them live.
Oh yeah.
So,
I wish I would have seen them, you know, back in the early 70s. I was
yeah.
just a little too young by the time they had pretty much broke up. I mean, my first
Mm.
concert I ever saw was 1976. And at that point, they were, pretty much on the way of calling it a day. So they didn't really
Mm.
come around to, be able to see them. So
Yeah. Yeah. It really is amazing, their catalog. And the great stuff that they did, and how I didn't get into the records a lot. I'm a big fan of the songs that I knew, and then other songs that I knew because of AOR radio,
right.
not just the hits, but oop, there I go. Um, but
Right.
the album oriented stuff, when I'm listening to my station, like Keishi here was 106 back home, and that's who was playing that kind of stuff. So I heard, other songs, and I'll still never remember. I'll never forget hearing. I almost said the wrong song. Foot stomping music on a poor man's concert back home one night, and I'm like, oh, this is really cool.
Yeah.
So
Well,
such
one
good
of the
stuff.
kinds of bands that you ask a ton of musicians and everybody knows who they are, but the
Mhm.
general public, if it wasn't for their Bad Time and Locomotion, and of course we're an American
Right.
band, they're not one of those bands that you never rate at the top.
Right.
Where are they with Led Zeppelin? Where
Hmm.
are they with Aerosmith? Where are they with the Rolling Stones?
Good call.
I'm not saying any of those other bands aren't good and they deserve their due,
Mhm.
but Grand Funk Railroad, wow. I mean,
Yeah.
they're nowhere to be found. So
That's a good call. I,
yeah,
I I'm right with you.
you're looking through the list that I did in an interview. The first thing I try to tell anybody is, it's going to be tough if you ask me who my favorite bands are or who
Mhm.
my favorite musicians are, because I'm not going to be one of those people that say nothing against Aerosmith, nothing against Rolling
Mhm.
Stones, nothing against any of them. But there's other bands and other musicians that I took to
Mhm.
before or as well, and
Mhm.
were more influential to me than some of those. Not that those weren't, but
Right. Do you do you think any of that? Here, I'm already going off of this one. I haven't even gotten to the second band yet. But um, do you think some of that is because of your? And I want to get more into this later about your upbringing in Vegas, being in and amongst a city where people congregate to perform.
yeah, I think some of it is that, and also I was just a teenager when I moved out here,
Okay.
and it was 1975. And at that point in
Okay.
time, Las Vegas really was pretty much in existence for what, maybe 20 years.
Hmm.
And so the music scene and what concerts came,
Yeah.
and anybody that I went to school with, I knew older people.
Hmm.
And so I would associate with that. So, like a perfect example is probably it was probably 76 or
Hmm.
77. My parents, where we lived, I had my next door neighbor and a guy across the street. So the
Hmm.
guy across the street I became good friends with because he wanted to play trumpet and all of those kinds of instruments. And I thought, well, why does he want to do that?
Hmm.
He's blaring Chicago.
Oh yeah.
And I'm just going, wow. I mean, and everybody knows Chicago for the common typical stuff, but this guy
Right.
was so into them. it gave me that background to sit and go, wow, Chicago, wow, Transit Authority, you know, the first record or the first, you know. And then the guy next to me was such a big Kiss fan that he apparently went to one of the shows where back in the day when, you know, like 74, 75 and all those
Mhm.
early years, Kiss would do a lot more stuff. They'd throw posters out to the crowd, or they would,
Mm.
you know, really try to get, you know, everybody on their side before they became, you know, really,
Right.
really big.
Right.
And I'll never forget him bringing, you know, showing me, I don't know, it must have been maybe an 11 by something or a 12, whatever it was, of this poster. And I was like, wow, what is this? And it was all this collage stuff of Kiss. And it's like, yeah, they were throwing them out at the concert. Now, obviously, they didn't come here and do it.
Right.
You had to go to LA in order to see the big bands and stuff. So I started getting influenced by older people and different bands
Mhm.
that maybe weren't as popular. Thin Lizzy was another one. Huge Thin Lizzy fan. I mean, you know, how many people know of Thin Lizzy other than Boys Are Back in Town? You know, I
Right.
mean, you
Right.
know,
Right.
so yeah, so it does come from being out here, and it's a totally different thing when I was growing up as opposed to, you know, the corporation life that it is now. So yeah.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. That's the corporation thing is something that really, that resonates in me that I speak about that a lot.
Yeah.
Um, how they people don't know, and that's the reason why we're talking today. It's the reason why when some people go, "I'm sorry, I went off on a tangent," was nope, nope, nope. That's exactly what this is about. It's
Yeah.
not about only people learning about you, but it's people learning about other
Right.
bands that you like.
And I've been told that. People have told me, hey man, you gotta, you know, curb your answers, you know, make them quick and do a little this and the other. And sometimes I try, but other times I feel like when
Mhm,
you're talking about music and you're talking about older bands and you're talking
mhm,
about all of those elements that
mhm.
even put me to where I even am now, which I'm not really anywhere, but at the same time, all that influence and all, you know,
Mhm.
it's hard to not go on about that stuff because I'm pretty passionate about that aspect of it, you know.
You and me both. Maybe, I do this with a lot of my guests. We should probably keep chatting a little bit after we do this show, and then if there's some of those bands that you would like to chat about, I'll have you back on, and we'll chat about some of these bands because
Absolutely.
I've got a handful that I keep talking about,
Right.
and you've probably got some that I would love to hear about, and God knows there's a ton of them out there on YouTube that albums of bands we've never
Yeah,
heard.
yeah. See, and that to me now is, and that brings us to a whole nother thing. That's,
Mhm.
I guess, where I have a sour subject is the simple fact that it's hard to discover new bands. You
Mhm.
know, who is playing by the rules and who's doing their own thing. Okay, so Generation Landslide, you know, is not some big whatever, but I try to
Right.
be honest and true to the songs I've written and what I'm trying to convey as a message, you know, for
Mhm.
the band. And I'm sure there's a lot of YouTube bands and all sorts of stuff. They don't get the exposure. They don't get the
Mhm.
time that, you know, every time you turn around, it's the same, you know,
Yeah.
same bands or same solo artists or same, you know, it's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
nobody's ever going to move forward and try to get into newer bands or up and coming bands without, you know, there's no scene anymore, you know.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And it gets crazy when, you and I as, not only musicians, but as fans of music and fans of other bands and musicians, when they go and do something else. One of the bands I continuously talk about on here is this new lineup that Richie Faulkner got together, this Elegant Weapons. I mean, shit, who's going to hear about that?
right,
You
right,
know, but
right.
damn, is it worth it? I mean,
Well,
Black Swan, you know,
that's the thing. Wasn't he the guitar player for Judas Priest? Yeah,
still is.
you know, in people's minds, and hey, you can't replace KK. I get that. I
Right,
totally understand you can't replace KK, but he did what he had to do.
right.
And after a little while, you kind of want to do your own thing.
Mhm.
And so he's taken it upon himself to do his own thing. And
Yeah,
oh, well, how come he can't get this and this and do this, this, this? Well, because he's not in Judas Priest anymore. But that doesn't matter. If the material's good, the band's good, you should be open to the fact of trying new bands and trying to take chances on, you know, people like him or people like myself, or even, you know, the singer, you know, Roy Cathy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in a couple bands with him, obviously Cold Sweat, and I'm in
Mm-hmm.
another band with him called Steel City. And then he has his own band, you know, The Fifth. And the thing is that he's busting his butt and busting his butt, and that's great and fine, but nobody is giving the chance to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to take a chance on Generation Landslide. I'm going to take a chance on The Fifth, you know.
Yep.
But it's tough, you know, because you want to go back to that association with an already product that you're familiar with.
Right. Right.
That's happening.
Well, and I think we'll get into this in a few minutes here, because, you know, I'm going to say that about this album. I mean, there's a lot of things in there. You know, these 5 bands, and we can finish this real quick here.
Sure.
But, you know, these 5 bands are what are mentioned, but I'm going to mention one here in a little bit that I noticed today when I was listening to it. So I'm going to save that little surprise.
Okay.
But it turned me on to them again, and I started listening to them after I was done listening to the album a couple of times. I listened to the album a couple of times today, yours.
Wow.
So then, and I listened to it last night. Part of it is because I want to be ready, but
Sure.
also because I'm like, well, there's something there, and I got to hear that again, you know. So I'm not sitting there going, yeah, okay, well, that's cool, you know. No,
Well,
it was
I
perfectly fine for me to listen to it a few times.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, here, you know what, real quick here, let me see about getting this up here too, because I have the here's the album cover right here. Generation Landslide, Ruling the Street Scene. So we'll talk about the guys in the band here too. But the next band was Sweet. What's a favorite record of theirs that you?
Another one. So that kind of goes along the Grand Funk Railroad line. So basically, everybody knows Ballroom Blitz or Fox on the Run or Little Willie.
Love is Like Oxygen. Oh, hello. There you go.
Oh, the reality of it is that there's an album called Give Us a Wink, and there's an album called Off the Record that, you know, who knows those? Nobody knows those. That was another one of those bands where there were 4 guys that could sing, could play, could write great songs, and yet they will probably be known as almost a one-hit wonder. Love is Like Oxygen or something, you know.
Yep.
They're so much deeper than that. And that resonates with me again. That's the same thing. I'm not looking to replace Fox on the Run or Love is Like Oxygen. I'm not going, man, I need a new song like that. I'm looking to just do, you know, 4th of July or, you know, Keep It In, or, you know, there's album tracks and things that people only, you know, musicians probably are familiar with those, you know, songs and stuff. So
yeah,
that's another reason why I mentioned that band, because it's the same principle, the same concept of, you know, who knows of them other than.
Well, yeah. And when you have musicians who have bands like Pat Benatar and Vince Neil who are covering Sweet,
Dude,
you know,
then
you're
that's
like,
the thing. So this is a silly story. I mean, it's a quick one, but
sure.
Years ago, when I was playing in a cover band, I had a girl singer, and we decided to do Pat Benatar's. I can't even think of the song that she.
It was.
Oh, no, you don't.
No, you don't.
Okay, so we're playing that at a bar somewhere, and a guy comes up to me and he says, "Man, that was awesome that you did that Sweet song." And I just looked and I said, "Ah, okay, now someone gets it." Everybody else would go, "Oh, that's a Pat Benatar song." Well, no, it comes from Sweet, and it was really cool that someone actually came up and realized what it was instead of that. Not that her version's bad. Once again,
Right.
you got to go back to the, the roots of it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really amazing to hear her do that, and then Vince Neil did did his cover, same album, same Desolation Boulevard. Uh, uh,
Not Set Me Free, was it?
Set Me Free. Thank you.
Yeah, because
Yep.
I know, didn't Striper do, or Michael Sweet did?
I think
They did
probably
Set Me Free.
Michael.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And then uh shit, I just had it. Oh, well, the one that I have to ask you, did you ever hear Sweet? They did a song called Yesterday's Hero.
You mean the Yesterday's Hero that the Bay City Rollers did?
Well, no,
Yeah,
this is, well,
because
I don't know. I've never heard theirs because it flipped me out because for years I'd heard the Babies do Back on My Feet Again.
okay.
It's the same exact song, but with
Really?
different lyrics, and it's called Yesterday's Hero. Instead of Back on My Feet Again, it's Yesterday's Hero. It's like,
Really?
yeah, yeah.
That's okay. So then there's more than I could have swore there was a Bay City Rollers song called that, but
See, that's what I'm wondering. Maybe it's the
yeah,
same. I
that's interesting.
Yeah, it's
I didn't know
pretty,
that. Wow.
yeah. Yeah, look, I'm sure it's on YouTube. I think I have it on a CD. It ended up being on a collection CD
Hmm.
that I picked up, and I'm like, wait a minute, whoa, this is Back on My Feet Again.
Wow.
So
I was
yeah,
written by the same people.
that's what I was trying to get figured out because
Right.
it was kind of, you know,
And just changed the words.
hmm
Right.
hmm yeah.
Interesting.
It's kind of like Brian Adams writing the song Reckless, but then he didn't put it on a record because he did it when Reckless came out, but he didn't put it on the record. It's on the 30th anniversary now,
Oh, I
but
see.
or the whatever anniversary. I think 30th anniversary. But then Loverboy did it, but
Hmm.
they did Dangerous, and it's on Lovin' Every Minute of it.
Yeah. Wow.
So
That's
same song.
yeah.
So
Well.
it's cool. I love it. I love how it all gets
Right.
used,
And at
right?
the end of the day, a good song is a good song, really, when
Right.
you think about it.
Right.
So,
And thank you for mentioning Give Us a Wink. That album, so good.
oh yeah, that album is front to back. I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard to beat that record. So,
Yeah. And it's got a hit on it. Action was a hit. Def Leppard covered it.
right. And so
So
did Raven, the band
yeah.
Raven, Black and Blue.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. So that's
Yeah.
the once again, same story. It's the only song that anybody ever knows, but
Mhm.
Yesterday's Rain or
Yeah.
Cockroach or there's all the songs on there that nobody even knows about, and it's a great record.
The Healer. That's
Yeah,
a
Healer's great, right?
what a great drudge tune that is, you know.
Yeah.
Those drums, the way they recorded that album, great.
7 minutes of the same bump, bump,
Right.
bump.
So heavy.
Everybody.
What about Kiss? What's your first of all, I'm running into people periodically that I just saw them here on their final tour. A friend of mine asked me to go, otherwise I probably wouldn't have made it. But uh, were you a big fan of the '80s era when they took the makeup off?
um, Not so much.
Not so much.
I think, yeah, no, I think I mean, I respected it and I saw
Mhm.
them and I appreciated it. But
Mhm.
my thing with Kiss ended probably at the solo records.
Yep.
Yeah, it was tough to come back from the first three, then Kiss Alive, then the next three, and then Kiss Alive 2, and then they had to do solo records, which, let's face it. I mean, three of the four records are really good. I mean, Peter's just he's
Nope.
not that he's not any good, but he's just not as good a songwriter as, the other three.
Mhm.
And then I think when they came back, I think everything changed. I think they became a machine and they lost the excitement of the silver and black and the getting in the trenches and just, so for me it ended there, even though I followed it through Dynasty all the way through the non-makeup. became friends with them. I ended up doing the Kiss tribute that, they,
Yes, that's right.
yeah. Yeah. So speaking of which, I saw Tommy Thayer, like, I think it was like so many days back or whatever.
Mhm.
I was out with him and some different friends and stuff. So I hadn't seen him in a little while. And so
Wow.
nice seeing him. And, um, you know, I,
Yeah.
I do have to say, if there is a period that I did really like Kiss without the makeup, I would say it would be the Revenge album.
Yes.
Um, I think everything up to that, even though Lick It Up is a good record, I
Mhm.
think they're just trying to fit in, with what was going on through the 80s, of course. And
Yeah.
when they did Revenge, I thought they actually felt it. I thought that was the right elements, the right chemistry, the right songs. It's a great record. And then obviously
Mhm.
after that, once again, it becomes, that same
Mhm.
machine type of thing. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
Uh,
and Kiss for me is another one of those that's very hard to, pinpoint because I grew
right.
up on it. I, loved it from the beginning, and I got to actually be that, guy that, that I always was like in my room when I was a teenager going, oh my God, if I could be, this, or if I could, oh my God, and, so for me, it's personal and close,
Yeah.
I will always love those guys no matter what. So,
Yeah. Well, it took me many, many years to realize I'm supposed to play bass. It took me decades to realize that I'm supposed to play bass because I always wanted to be a drummer. But as soon as I started playing bass and I realized what it was, I started looking at all the people I really liked. Geddy Lee, Gene Simmons, Steve Harris, all bass players, Chris Squire. I'm just like, okay, yep, I'm supposed to be a bass player.
yeah.
So it's pretty perfect being a big Gene Simmons fan all those years.
Yeah, I mean it, and that makes perfect sense too. I've come across people that are really great guitar players, but they're even better bass players, or guys that are great drummers that
Yeah.
become, singers, or a guitar player, or, there's different things for, everybody really. You
Hmm.
just have to figure out, what it is that you really are more passionate about.
Right.
You could do more than one instrument. It's just,
Absolutely.
you got to just really figure out what your focus is, and
Mhm.
what's best suited for you. That's all. So,
Yeah. Like
yeah,
Steven Tyler starting out as a drummer, it
exactly.
totally helps him down the line when he's writing other things and he knows time signatures and he gets.
Yep. People don't realize how important that the more instruments you learn to play, and it helps with anything that you do. I mean,
Yes.
like you said, songwriting or whatever. If you know how tempos go and grooves go, and you're hearing something, you have a better chance of coming up with something, better, and something that
Yes.
you like more because you'll understand it a little bit more.
Absolutely. Brother Joe is here today. We also have Casey's here. What was this for a Super Bowl win? Tears are being shed in Kansas City. Yes, absolutely. It was an
Hmm.
interesting game. An interesting game. Um,
Was yeah.
yeah. Um, and then you mentioned here's one that I was really happy to hear about. Y&T. Really happy to hear about that one.
Once again, so all three bands that you've mentioned are all three underdogs, and that's not even including Thin Lizzy. So if you take Grand Funk Railroad, you take Sweet, you take Thin Lizzy, and you take Y&T,
Hmm.
there's a pattern there. You
Right.
can see that there's a pattern. Anybody who knows or is familiar with their material,
Hmm.
you'll sit and listen to it and go, wow, okay, I get it. It's off the beaten path, but
Hmm.
yet it's solid, and yet it does something to me. And Y&T, once again, is another thing that's close and personal because I got to meet them years ago. Uh, when I was in a band when I was growing up with Mark Slaughter, we went to record. I had to go and record at the same place that Y&T did because,
Oh,
oh my gosh, this is 1981, 82. And I'm thinking, wow, oh my God, Y&T recorded here, got it. Um, Also, the engineer and the producer who did the Cold Sweat record
mhm.
also engineered and produced Y&T, um, Down for the Count
Oh,
and
yeah,
Contagious.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so
Is that? Kevin Beamish?
Kevin Beamish,
Yeah.
exactly. So that
Yeah.
was one of the reasons. So when Cold Sweat was looking for a producer to do the record that we did, everybody threw a bunch of different things in. So we had people like Eddie Kramer and
Mm.
Andy Johns, you know, and I'll never
Mm.
forget me being the drummer. I had to sit there at this big rehearsal studio while these guys came in and literally stood behind me, because everybody knows at the end of the day, people like Eddie Kramer or Andy Johns or any of those kinds of people, if you don't have solid on the drums, you're going to already have a problem.
Yep.
So we went through all of the different things. And then when it came time to do it, I just knew, I had this feeling that Kevin Beamish was the right guy. And he came in, you know, they came in just the same. And I just got a vibe off of them. And then I just didn't want to tell everybody else in the band that, God, this is great. You know, he he produced Y&T records. Oh man, this is going to be awesome. Leonard Hayes is my favorite, one of my favorite drummers ever.
Right.
So, wow, this is great. You know, but I didn't want to tell those guys that to sway them. I just figured that he would be the best, you know, liaison, however you want to call it, between
Right.
five guys. That, you know, it was Mark Ferrari's band. It still is, and the top say per se. But you know, he let everybody else have their opinion and their say too. And when we were doing it, I said, hey, you know, I get a real good vibe off of Kevin Beamish, you know, and it, behold, it just happened to be the producer that we got. So that's just my weird way of, you know, I want to feel some of that magic, you know, from people that are around those bands, like you mentioned, you know. So that's, you know, that's where that comes from. And Y&T just, I tried to see them so many times. I was going to audition for them after Leonard Hayes left the band. And there was a point in time where I was in touch with their management, and I was thinking, oh my God, I knew all of that stuff like it was nothing. And by the time I was able to even, you know, do it, I was in contact with the manager, and he had said, you know, hey, I'm going to, you know, set you up with tickets up here in San Jose or, you know, Sacramento. We just found a guy, and we appreciate you, you know, And, you know,
Jimmy DeGrasso.
Yep. Which is a great, so I continued down the Y&T path even with him. So
yeah. And then he ended up in Megadeth.
Right.
You know?
And I believe Alice Cooper, I think, for a brief moment. So
yeah. And he looked like John Bon Jovi, for crying out loud.
Yes. Oh my God.
You look at that Contagious record, you're like, is that John Bon Jovi?
And that's what everybody looked like at the end of the 80s, beginning of the 90s, before the grunge took over.
Yeah. I had the pleasure of meeting up with Joey Alves at that time, when they were being produced by Ronnie Montrose.
God.
And it was, you know, and then right after that, they let him go.
Yeah, I know. Oh.
And then Steph Burns.
That's the sore subject with me and stuff. I mean, I like Steph Burns and I like Jimmy DeGrasso. Four of them guys. There was no better band that was, talk about digging in the trenches. I mean, Y&T was around before 3/4 of those bands that became 10 times bigger than them. And they just never gotten anything they deserved. And I still to this day, it's, you know.
Yeah.
So,
And my only disappointment with any of their albums was 10. That's the only one that was a big disappointment. Some of those later ones were a little different, but I loved them.
Right.
You know?
And once again, we go on about what do you do to sell the band? Y&T never did that when they were Yesterday and Today, all the way through to 10. Even Contagious, it's borderline. You can tell something's changing, and they're, what are they doing? What are they doing? And with 10, they flat out just said every song's going to be commercial. It's going to be this. It's going to da-da. And you lose that whole element of what the band was created. But at the same time, like they said, they had done 10 records. where were they supposed to go from there?
Yeah.
So you can't blame them after that. It's not like they did one record and then sold out or whatever you want to
Right.
call it
Right.
to be on the top of the charts.
Yep. I mean, Down for the Count, when they did Summertime Girls, I was just like, uh, this is pretty damn commercial, but I loved it.
That's what started it.
Mhm.
That's what
Yeah.
really started it. But it was only the one song, and it was really hooky.
Mhm.
And everybody kind of, and me included, let it kind of slide because the rest of the record is
Mhm.
heavier and it's them, da 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 da. And then
Mhm.
Contagious comes out, and here they go again. Little by
Mhm.
little, it's creeping in. And so you could see what happened to them. And
Don't be afraid of the dark, little by little.
right.
That's funny that you said that. As soon as you said that, I'm like, well, that's a verse. That's a
Yeah,
Y&T verse right there.
exactly. And that was, once again, there was that commercial side to
Mm.
sit and go, okay, we got to go down this road.
Right.
I get it, but
Right.
it wasn't them. I mean, you can't compare that to Earthshaker or Black Tiger or Meat Creek or
Yeah,
anything
no.
like that. You can't.
No. Yeah. It's a definite turn, not a bad turn, just
Right,
a turn. You're
just
like,
a different, correct, a different turn. Right,
yeah, we were on this highway. Now we just went off on this one. Just stick
right,
with us. And we went that way,
right. So
you know?
that's why I came up with those bands. Just,
Mhm.
I could have. It's easy to say the Who, the Rolling Stones,
Right.
Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, all this. I
Yeah.
get it, but
Yeah.
it's not really me. It's not that it's
Right.
not me. It's just I don't go down that road per se. Even though I love a lot of the different stuff that I just mentioned,
Mhm. You and me both.
I'm a different, you know, person when it comes to,
Mhm.
personally stuff. And then
Mhm.
overall, yeah, I mean, I could chop it up, with Deep Purple and Black Sabbath and every other
Yeah.
band done, but
Yeah. It's almost like we all have destinations that we like to visit. And there are some that we just end up really liking that touch us. So we go there more often than we go to these other places. But if we go to these other places, it's still cool. It's
sure.
just
Oh,
not
absolutely.
like, oh, Rolling Stones, I gotta immerse myself. Now, some days I gotta immerse myself in the Stones or the
Sure.
Who. Something happens.
Right.
Today, I started realizing in track number 3, and I want to get through these tracks too, that I want to talk about the tracks on the album.
Okay.
All of a sudden, I get into it again this morning, and I'm like, whoop, hold on. I'm getting elements of Nelson in there because of the harmonies and that. So it's I'm getting a little bit of that, and I'm like, oh, I when I'm done here, I gotta go and listen to that first Nelson record because I love it.
Wow, I don't think I've ever heard that comparison to them,
Mm,
arts to
yeah,
that record or the material that I wrote.
yeah.
It's odd.
Mainly, like I say, in the harmonies, the and what's happening in the song.
Right.
Um, and I'll think of the song. I can tell you what the song is, but go ahead.
No, for Nelson song.
Oh no, no, it's okay. Yeah. You know, w- the last band you mentioned, and we'll just move on, is Triumph. That was the last one you mentioned that
Yep.
was in that article. Um, and I'm a big, you know, I'm a big fan early on because I had a friend of mine who had
Sure.
their stuff on, you know. But one of my favorite things about Triumph is when they did the Surveillance album. I love that album.
Sure.
I, you know, I think, um, why can't I say the album before? Never Surrender is probably my favorite record of theirs.
Which
But
one? Which one?
Never Surrender,
Oh yeah. Okay.
yeah, and that title track is just fantastic. I love it.
Yeah.
And then, but when they put out Surveillance, they had Steve Morse on there.
Right.
It was one of my favorite things to take that CD cover over to see Steve Morse when he did a show nearby, and I handed it to him. He goes, "What did I do on here?"
Right. He did two things on there. I believe he did an acoustic piece
Yes.
with Rick, and he did solo on one of the other songs.
Yeah, Headed for Nowhere. I
And
said
Right.
Yeah, because I said you did the All the King's Horses
Right.
acoustic piece, and then you did the guitar duel with
That was great.
Rick on Headed for Nowhere, and I'm like, that's a brilliant. If you've never heard
Yep.
Surveillance, folks, check it out. It's a great record, and that that song smokes. Just like when Steve was in freaking Kansas,
Yeah.
and I saw somebody talking about what a lackluster. I mentioned this on the show recently because I just recently got Power on vinyl, um, and they said it's a lackluster record. I'm like, are you kidding me? I,
Not anything he's ever done. I mean, gonna, I
thank
don't
you.
know what band Dixie Dregs all the way up through his whole career. Deep
Mhm,
Purple. I mean, they say the same thing about that, but some of the best songs
mhm,
are the songs from the records that he's on. I
mhm,
mean, he's an incredible player. I
mhm.
mean, there's no doubt in my mind.
Yeah, yeah.
But back to the Triumph thing, in my opinion, they did the exact same thing that Y&T did. You
Mhm.
know, if you follow Triumph, which hardly anybody ever did. I mean, I was way back in the Just the Game to Progressions of Power, and Allied Forces gets them a little bit of airplay. Never
Mhm.
Surrender gets them a little bit more, and you sit and go, "Uh-oh, what's happening again? Here we go." Sport of Kings, or actually Thunder 7 comes out.
Right, Thunder 7, yes.
Right. Here they go. They're teetering again. Sport of Kings comes out. Man, we need a hit. We need a hit.
And that album I thought was really I thought it was really good. I
It
shoot, the
it's just
producer just crossed my mind and I can't think of it. It's not Peter Collins, Trumbo.
yes.
Yeah,
Yes. I
th
can't even
thank God.
Tom?
Tom Trumbo, yeah,
Yep.
yeah, and it was just I thought um, I thought the ballads on there were super romantic. I'm a romantic, and they're just beautiful
Right.
songs, and then the ones that were pop oriented, Somebody's Out There,
Yep.
beautiful.
Yep.
Beautiful soaring
Yep.
tune,
Yep.
I played it on the radio, and
Yeah.
then anything that rocked on there was great.
Was right. And that's exactly right. Same thing. I
Yeah,
mean, the songs were great, but you could see they were changing.
correct.
And then Surveillance, my take on Surveillance, which I think is a great record as well
Mhm,
as you do,
mhm.
is that I don't feel that they were cohesive as a band anymore.
Right.
I think they were at the point where they just said, screw it. The rock songs are going to rock. The ballads are going to this, and this is going to happen. We're going to get a guest star on this, and da 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 da. And they just came up with this record that they just really didn't even do anything with
Yeah,
because they really didn't tour. They really didn't play anything anywhere or anything. And then the band broke up. But they were left with this record. They probably thought, well, you know what? What do we care? Let's just go this way.
mhm,
And it turned out to be a totally different album than you ever expected. It
mhm,
was old style with modern, at the time,
mhm.
songwriting
Right.
to go with it. So they were another one of those bands as I was growing up in high school and everything, I
Mhm.
just loved everything about them, and their material was great, and they never fully got, their rightful, due either.
Mhm.
It's once again, when you
Right.
think three piece, when you think of Canada, and
Yes.
Rush. I grew up on Rush. I think Rush is, I mean, they are who they are or were who they were.
Right.
But Triumph was nothing like Rush.
Yeah.
And yet they were the comparisons, and then they never really got their deserve, and
Mhm,
just so now that you've gone through those lists of mine, that's a lot of the reason why I have those lists of those bands
mhm,
because of that.
mhm,
When you dig deeper into it, there's a lot more there than
mhm.
what people just see on the surface.
Right.
A lot of people don't know that because they're not as big and popular.
Right. Right. And I'll tell you what, I'm very pleased, but not in the way that I'm like, "Well, good, somebody else who thinks like I do." Not to that point, but wow, there's somebody else that thinks like I do. It's just, uh, talking about getting through to Thunder 7, and then you're like,
Right.
didn't quite have it. Sport of Kings, boom, you got it. Okay, you're back. And then,
Right.
like you said, how you felt about Surveillance. I get it.
Right.
I dig it. That's true.
But they changed.
Yep.
See, that's the thing. So
That is.
whatever it was that they built as a foundation, just like Y&T. So you had Earthshaker, you had Black
Mhm.
Tiger, and you had Mean Streak. Okay, great. Well, for Triumph, you had Progressions of Power, you had Allied Forces, and you had Never Surrender. So you had this base of what these bands became,
Mhm.
and in my opinion, I always felt that there were beginning points, high points, and low points for every single band
Mhm.
ever in existence. And I
Mhm.
know it sounds like a silly thing to say, but it's true. There could be really good records or there could be really bad records, whether it's at the beginning or the end, there's always a middle spot that somehow or another that capture, like think of Aerosmith.
Mhm.
So Aerosmith, when you think about Aerosmith, Toys in the Attic, Rocks, and Draw the Line. Now, put those three to the side.
Mhm.
Y&T, Earthshaker, Black Tiger, and Mean Streak. Put those to the side. Same with the three Triumph ones. You could go down every Cheap Trick. Look at Cheap Trick. Same thing.
Yep.
In Color, Heaven Tonight, and Dream Police. You have there's your bulk. There's
Yep.
your core right there. And whether something before it is good or bad, or something after it is good or bad, you have this foundation.
Mm.
And that's what a lot of people, I don't feel, create anymore. And
Mhm.
I think back to now the band that I'm in, the Generation Landslide. So what I tried to do is I tried to write those kinds of songs to say, here's what I feel and here's what I believe in. So say I get my hat trick, my trilogy of
Right.
whatever you want to call it. This is the basis for it. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
I don't want to be commercial. I don't want to be underground heavy. I don't want to be death metal. I don't want to be any of it. I just want 10 songs that complete
Mhm.
of one concept of this particular thing, and then go to the next and go to the next. And then
Mhm.
wherever it goes is where it goes. But that's the basis of why I wrote the songs I wrote and how I wrote the songs I wrote, and
Yeah.
I've always believed that every band, same with Kiss. Think about it. The first three Kiss records, okay, I think they're great, but they didn't sell. But
No.
everybody knows Destroyer, Rock and Roll Over, and Love Gun. You see what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
Pink Floyd, same thing.
Yeah, true, right.
Every band, has this foundation. And if you
Mhm.
don't, I think you're just wandering constantly and you're trying to, I don't know what you call that. You like come up with the times or you know what I'm
Right.
saying? You know,
Mhm. Yeah.
you're, whether you're guessing on what people are going to like and want. And, so
Yeah, and it is those times where you keep true to yourself. I know one of the bands another band that I just interviewed Toby Jepson from the UK from Wayward Sons last week. And, that's a band. Boom, 1, 2, 3. There's your 3 right there. Their first 3 records they put out, they're
right,
not a clunker in the bunch and
right.
just kick ass, and you hope that when they move forward on this next one,
That,
and yet at the same time, we look back and we're thinking things are different now.
right. And that's
We
all you can do. And that's the
Mhm.
thing. And I feel that, all the old bands, I think, started that way.
Mhm.
I've read numerous stories on, whether it's Ted Nugent to Led Zeppelin to any of those. The reality of it is that you got to write what you feel and what you believe in,
Mhm.
and you store it. They always say, your first record, you have, 10 years to write it. And your
Mhm.
second record, you got 3 months,
Yeah.
Well, the funny thing about it is if anybody was smart about it, you
Mhm.
just sit and go, okay, well, I have these songs, but what about this and this and this? I got to keep the same construction going, the same order of business, and not all of a sudden go, oh man, I just heard that new such and such song. Oh, the newest Britney Spears song is, oh my God, I'm going to do a song like that.
It's tough.
Right. It's tough to do that. And so you have to stockpile
Mhm.
to a certain extent. And I think that's what some of those older bands did.
Mhm.
And, that's why you get that bulk of material. And,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, you
people
have
don't think that way anymore.
yeah. Yeah, plenty of things to you want to chip away at whatever, because we have this cool opportunity now to get all these remastered records,
Right.
CDs, records, whatever, where they put all these songs that didn't make the record, like Judas Priest. They put out
Yep.
everything remastered. Oh, and here's a song we didn't put on the record. And you're like, oh, I see why. Um, because
Right.
either it just falls flat,
Right.
comparatively speaking, because
Yep.
I have such a love of that I throw myself right back to when Hellbent for Leather came out, when
Same thing.
British Steel, any of these albums, and I'm like,
Right.
yeah,
There's their bulk.
yeah,
There's their thing that started with Hellbent for Leather, but actually after the Unleashed in the East, you had British Steel, you had Point of Entry, Screaming for Vengeance. That once again, there's your
yeah,
your bulk of good quality material. And yeah, being a songwriter, you're going to write and write, and sometimes it's better to do quality instead of quantity. I've always felt that. Like you could come
yeah,
up with riffs every day. You could, man, I've got 400 songs, da 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 da. But at
mhm,
the end of the day, if you pare it all down and you can't remember something and you don't hear something that's memorable or a lick or a vocal melody or some kind of something, the odds are other people aren't going to either.
right,
And I know, you get close to it and stuff, but I've always felt that if I don't come back to something and I can't remember it or I don't feel the same way, you got to
mhm,
let it go. And I'm sure some of those older bands did the same thing. And,
mhm,
this song happened to make it to the recording part, but just didn't quite, and that's why you got the bonus track on the
mhm,
Judas Priest records.
yeah.
See? So they thought, okay, well, it's good, but it's just not okay. Let's move on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially when you're constructing how to put these, let's just say 10 tracks. You're just like, okay, so how are we going to stack these?
Right.
And it's almost like the uh Test for Echo album cover where it's like this, artistic rock situation where you're like laying them
Yep.
just right. And you're like, if I miss balance with this song, the whole damn thing falls apart.
Right.
And if it's teetering, you're like, just drop it. Just
Right. And that's what created great records. I mean, think about everybody nowadays for the last 20, maybe 30 years or some. Everybody thinks that they're going to give their fans or the people out there more bang for their buck.
right.
But the reality of it is how many songs were on that Sweet record? 8. How many
Mhm.
songs are on a Pink Floyd record? 4. Or
Four.
a Yes record, or I don't care what your concept is,
Mhm.
but you're not giving people more stuff. You're just adding more things to it that you don't need to add. And
Mhm.
that's always been my opinion. If you have 9 of the best songs and you're a few minutes like under the time,
Yeah.
big deal. Beatles records
Oh,
were,
yeah.
20 something minutes long or whatever.
Yeah.
I always felt that you have to weed out some of that. You're not
Mhm.
giving people any extra stuff because if
Mhm.
you don't think it's all that great, why are you putting it on something that you think other people are going to like? And
Yeah.
I've never been a believer of that concept. So,
Yeah. Yeah, and there's been a lot of records over history that you and I have experienced where you're like, "Okay, I could have been done, like, 5, 10 minutes ago."
right,
You lately, because I've had, Scott, Mishu on the show, and he has the Scott Mishu project, uh, they put out an album that's like 39 minutes, and it's great. It's in that same vein as Surfing with the Alien. I always kinda put it in there. I'm not saying it sounds like it, I'm just saying it's an instrumental album that's in that same vein, and
right,
Surfing with the Alien was 30 some minutes long. Then he put out Flying in a Blue Dream, still had great songs on it. I just felt it was a little too long, especially if he attempted to do the vocal thing and do that. It wasn't, you have to do it, I guess, at some point, if that's what your desire is. You get it
right,
out of your system and you see how it works.
right.
Flying in a Blue Dream is a great record. I loved the tour. I loved the record, but it could have been shorter, more like Surfing with the Alien,
Right.
but that's
Yeah.
what I hear what you're saying. When you get
Yeah.
to that level where you're like, it's just too long, at this point.
Where do you draw the line? I mean, look at, I know Rush tried to do longer pieces and stuff, but they
Mhm.
didn't have to. They
Mm-mm.
felt like it. They felt that was quality. So
Mhm.
I would rather put something like that on there and only give the listeners 4 songs if that's the
Right.
case, instead of,
Right.
oh man, we got to give them 12, 13, 14 songs. I mean, there's that have so many songs. Like a good example for me is a newer, well, it's not really that new, but it's new enough. I love the Slash records. Okay, I'm a big Slash fan. I mean, World on Fire and Apocalyptic,
Mhm.
I like both of those. The thing is that you didn't have to put some of those extra songs on there, because I could have gone through that and said this, and I could have came up with the 10 best amazing songs ever, and that would have been front to back, like Led Zeppelin 4.
Mhm.
People love Led Zeppelin 4 because when it starts, it does the 4 songs it needs to do, does the other side, the 4 songs it needs to do, and it ends and you put it back on again.
Yeah.
When you get further and further down the line, you can tell people are just adding more songs on there.
Yes.
Why? The record's great as it is. I mean, but everybody's,
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah. Even Priest, that's kind of what I liked about Priest is they always kept it at a good time level.
Sure.
Defenders was that way, Screaming was that way. 10 songs, 9 songs,
Right.
you
How
know,
how many is one too many? Do you think,
right.
people like Steven Tyler or Rob Halford and stuff were sitting there as Aerosmith and Judas Priest are going through? You know what? But hey, come on, man. We got to give our fans more. No, 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 no. These are the best ones. Adjust them, arrange them where we need them, front to back. Boom. Toys in the Attic, you're done. Aerosmith
Mhm.
rocks. Boom, you're done.
Yep.
It's as simple as that. And if there's anything left over, you hang on to it, you
Yeah.
rework it, you this and the other, see what you feel like when you do the next record.
Mhm.
That's all. It's
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. I
that's my
get it. I get and then those songs get there's so many good songs that so many of those get chosen for movies, TV,
right.
you know?
Exactly.
Uh, it's
So
it's it's the way it goes. Let's go ahead and get into the band. Who all is in the band? And I mean, has anything changed recently?
the drummer is different.
Okay.
Record. Yeah, the drummer's different. So on bass, uh, I have a good friend of mine that I played with for over 20 something years. His name is John Swanson.
Mhm.
I played with him in Ohio in cover bands and stuff like that. And I brought him in on this one. On guitar is Sandy Stein. I kind of grew up with him, and then we kind of parted ways for many years, and then we reconnected again. And then I originally had a guy named Ken Kadelka, who was the original guy, and things just didn't work out. He was going in a different direction than I was going,
Gotcha.
um, and the band was going. So Sandy had a friend. His name is Trace Lockwood, so he plays drums for us. They grew up together in bands and stuff. So most of the Vegas thing still is in play, except for bass player lives in Ohio. So
Mm,
yeah,
gotcha. Now, you said that you moved there to Las Vegas in 75.
correct.
Um, is there I do I do have to ask you, are there any myths about Vegas that you're like, yeah, no, it's not like that?
Yeah, I used to be asked if I lived in a hotel.
Because we do kind of just think of it as the strip and
Right. Oh my God, you come from Las Vegas? Did you live in a hotel? No. There's actually suburbs. There's actually homes and schools and stores, and you know, just like every other town at the time. Obviously now it's a big city, but
Mhm.
yeah. So that was one of the ones I used to really love.
Mhm.
So
Did
yeah.
you Yeah. Let's see here. I wanted to just to ask you about some of the tracks. I kind of like going through the tracks. Do you mind doing that?
Sure.
I always go back to, oh, now look at this. I have to show you this. I had some fun, and we'll just see if this makes you as happy as it does me.
Okay.
We're about the same age, it sounds like. Um, so I'm doing wallpapers. What's your wallpaper on your phone?
My wallpaper is my girlfriend and I.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
That's awesome, especially for Valentine's Day. That's a
I'm romantic and sentimental just the same way. I keep the band and all those kinds of things a little bit, separate from the personal thing. That way,
right,
so, you know,
right.
interfere.
Well, I mean, I can't say that I'm not romantic about this. Maybe I should have a picture of my wife and I on my phone, but
Well, well,
instead I went back to my past and
oh Lord. Wow.
I
Now that's
just
classic. That right there, um,
see how you're
that's
smiling.
that's
We're just
classic.
smiling. It just makes me happy.
Yeah, that's classic. I mean, that's the old. Everybody is when we were all growing up.
Yeah.
Somebody in our clique, whoever it was, could have been me or anybody else, had that poster pretty much on everybody's wall of some way, shape, or form. So that's a classic, iconic.
Yeah. And the quality on it was so good that it just was like, wow, it just my phone lights up and then there it is. Now, what about this poster? You had to have had this one or somebody who had one like it. Would you just do it? I don't know why it's not blowing up. There you go.
Oh my God, Linda Carter.
Yes.
Isn't that Linda Carter?
Yes.
Yeah. So funny story about her, real quick.
Oh, please.
Growing up, she was trying to have a music career briefly.
Yeah.
I it must
Right.
have been 80, 81, maybe something
Probably
like that.
about right.
82, something like that. And there was a record store out here called Odyssey Records that we all grew up with for years and years and years and years. That was the place to go. And I'll never forget getting the phone call because I knew all the people, and I was just a kid then. Linda
Yeah.
Carter was making an appearance there. And
Mm.
I actually got to meet Wonder Woman. I couldn't believe it. They're blasting her record all through the place and everything, and nobody. It's not that I can't say nobody cared about the music or the record,
Right.
but it was Linda Carter sitting like right there, and you didn't care about the music. You just wanted to like say hi or just
Right.
meet Carter. It was great.
Right. Because I mean, what a statuesque figure,
Oh yeah, she was
you know.
huge. She was
And
huge for years. Yeah.
yeah, and she was all put together. I mean, she
Yep.
was a woman,
Yeah. Right.
powerful, strong. She
Right.
did, you know,
Yeah.
it just
Those
was
were.
awesome. So, so anyway, yes, now that I've gotten over that,
Yeah. Right.
right, like I'll ever get over that. Um, so the first single from the album was actually "Feel the Sensation," right?
Right. Hmm.
But is it actually the second track on the record?
It is second
Okay.
track. Yeah. Hmm.
All right. So then tell us about the first track is Little Miss Lonely.
Yeah. So Little Miss Lonely was just an experience that I had in a relationship many, many years ago that turned out to be the person ended up being something different than what I thought she was. The music is basically lifted. Well, I don't know
Mm.
about lifted, but it's reminiscent of Aerosmith, Lightning Strikes.
I love that record.
Yeah, Night in the Ruts.
Yeah. No, that's
No,
from
that
the
was
one with the two other
Rock.
guys on it.
Right, Rockin' Hard
Rockin' a
Places.
Hard Place. Yeah.
Yeah. So the music is I took the title. Sammy Hagar had a song out at the time called he did a cover of Run for Your Life is what it was called. It was
Yeah.
on the Danger Zone album.
Mhm.
And for some reason I just love the title. In the middle of it he says Little Miss Lonely, and I thought, wow, that's such a great title.
Yeah.
It just so happened that
Mhm.
I ended up using it later, and it was an Aerosmith type of a song,
Yeah.
and I just wanted a little bit of meat on it and stuff like that. So I just, it's a failing relationship. Aren't
That's
they all?
great opening track.
Thank you.
Then just tell us a little bit about Feel the Sensation, and then tell us about what the decision, what was the catalyst to make that the first single?
To make it the first single was, I thought it was the best representation
Mm,
of what the band was going to be like, what the band was going to sound like. You know, when
mm,
if you had a chance to watch the video of it, it goes
mhm.
hand in hand with it, because that's the first time you see the group. We're out on the street, just, because the album, the whole thing comes from Alice Cooper. The name Generation Landslide is a track from the Billion Dollar Babies album, and in that, he says a line that says, "Ruling the street scene." So in the lyrics and everything, so Feel the Sensation was the best opportunity to introduce the band. We're out
Mm,
on the street playing, just having a great time. And the song itself is more about just that. It's about a person having a day job, and all those years of working, and what's the biggest thing that people do when they're done working? They have tickets to a concert. Oh
mm.
my gosh, it's going to be the greatest night ever, and that's where I took it from. I took it from the Who, with the Tommy soundtrack.
Mm,
So if anybody's familiar with the movie Tommy,
mhm.
it's like a very spiritual thing where he's up there and everybody is, it's like a religious gospel type.
Yes.
So that's where I took it from. Feel the Sensation. It's about going to this concert because you've worked all week long and you just can't wait, and you're just gonna go crazy and go nuts. So yeah,
Yeah. Is that the scene where it's got Sally, where they're talking about the girl who goes to the show, or is that a different part?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. That was
Also another band, I'm sure you're familiar with Angel.
no.
I loved Angel. I don't mention them enough as much as I
Mm,
should,
yeah.
but I just absolutely loved Angel from the get-go
Mhm.
all the way through. And they have a song called Rock and Rollers, and
Yes.
I kind of got that same vibe of that, going to a show and having a great time and stuff. But I just took it more of a from the Who spiritual side
Mhm.
of how they did that in the movie of
Yeah,
Tom.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I just got that on Blu-ray a while back, and I've been meaning to watch it again, and because I haven't seen it in a long time.
It's
Um,
just how good that movie is. But I think, in my opinion, I think it goes over a lot of people's heads, because I think it was ahead of its time. I think the whole concept from the very beginning is, this is where you're born and this is where you'll return to, and your
Mhm.
life is whatever you make of your life, good, bad, or indifferent, you're going to end up in the exact same spot that you started. And it takes you in this musical journey of just so much great shades and different light and dark and all the different things. I think that movie is brilliant.
Yeah,
And so,
thank you. Wow, you just I wanted to pull out some 70s jargon. Man, you just laid it on me right there. Where holy shit, dude. You just made me think about that because it goes to what we talk about today, where our experiences don't define us. Really, that's a
correct.
big part of that movie because of all the shit that character goes through,
That's right.
and then to have this height of
Right.
fame, uh,
At what cost?
at
See,
what cost?
that's the whole thing. Is everything by choice, by design?
Mhm,
Are you in the right place at the right time? It answers, really, when you think about it, all the things that people think about in life and stuff like
mhm,
that. That
mhm.
movie really answers a lot of it, because
Yeah.
you don't really know, was it by choice that he followed his stepdad and became a green coat? Was it by design that he, lost all his senses? I mean, the movie is just so deep and so huge,
Mhm.
a million years before its time, I
Yeah.
feel. I mean,
That
that
was
came,
75, I think, right?
and I remember getting the soundtrack, and it was that movie and the
Mm.
Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yeah.
religiously just kept watching over and over and over and over anytime I was able to. But I was just, so you think about it. I was 11 years old at that time, and that thing is flying over my head like there's no tomorrow. But
we are the same age, it sounds like.
but something grabbed me and something touched me. The music, just wow. But the everything about it was just so different that there's got to be more to this movie than what people think it is. And sure enough, it is.
Because people get stuck, some people, and it's understandable. Some people aren't looking for art. They're not looking for, they just want you to lay it out for them. They don't want to, why is she being covered in beans? I don't get the beans thing.
Right.
It's not about the beans.
Right. You're losing the whole concept of what direction everything is taking you down. It's supposed to be a journey, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a good one or a bad one or an indifferent one. It's throwing things at you.
It's an amazing journey.
Right. It's throwing things at you in every crazy direction you can think of. And that's a great example. The beans is great. I mean, is she drunk? Is she dreaming? Is she fed up with her life? There's so many things. And all of a sudden she relates to the beans.
Yeah.
I mean, what a great idea. I mean, so.
Yeah. So thank you. I appreciate that. That's the reason we talk about this stuff.
So I always wanted a spiritual type of song with a heavy, that song's pretty heavy. It's tuned down and it's got a real heavy thing to it, but I wanted the vocals and everything to be more gospel-ish and have things coming in and out and then also the chanting part, the hey, 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 hey part, it's supposed to be that same, anthem type of thing. So
well, I think it's the third track, Nighttime Magic, that I think that's where I started feeling that Nelson-ish vibe in the harmonies and things like that. And in the energy and the harmony. That was where I was doing.
I kind of got that idea from Grand Funk.
Yeah, sweet.
The way I sing it sounds like Donnie Brewer mixed with Paul Stanley. And then the vocals come in and out and you have harmonies like all sorts of different places throughout different stuff just to sweeten the top. The riff is a cool riff and it's a cool song musically, but I wanted the vocals to do something totally different against the grain. And that's pretty much what it does. It doesn't go with the lick or the riff. It goes counter it. So this way it spreads it bigger throughout the riff. So
it kind of gives you a broader spectrum and you're
correct.
Keeps it interesting. That's
I took that one. I got the concept from Grand Funk mixed with, you're gonna hear different elements of Kiss. Paul Stanley, because I can't, I'll never let that go just because there's something about him that just triggers me to sit and go, man, that was a cool line he did there, or that's a cool phrase here, or his different things were different than other people, and so I related to that. So I kind of pick and choose my own variety of it.
Yeah, stepping back very, very briefly, the solo records, Ace, Paul.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I go back and forth. If
Me too.
Put Hold Me, Touch Me on there, and he came up with, I don't know if he saved All American Man or whatever the story is, and he put that on the solo record and didn't put Hold Me, Touch Me on it, I would go, holy crap, that record is great. I mean, every song on it, he sings his ass off. The playing is great. It's just, when I think about Hold Me, Touch Me, I go, God, why did he put that on there? I know he wanted a ballad, but so.
And then you got Gene Simmons putting uh, Wish
Wish,
Upon a
right,
Star.
right,
On You're like, what the hell is that? What?
right.
I mean, I
Yeah,
get it.
I
You
think
do
his
whatever you want. You own this record.
exactly, and I think that's what Gene did more. I think Paul literally sat and said, you know what? I'm going to make the best record I can. That's going to sound like me. It's going to sound like Kiss. It's going to this and the other.
Mhm.
These are going to be great songs. And he said, okay, great. Then Ace turned around and goes, well, I got these songs. This song, he's not the greatest singer. He comes up with this and this, and that album's pretty darn good. But then he has to commercialize it and put
A
New York.
Russ Ballard tune.
So you take New York Groove off of it, then you sit and go, okay, it's a really good record, but is it as good as Paul's? Probably not, because his singing isn't as good. His guitar playing
Correct.
is great, and the songs are good. Then you go to Gene and you sit and go, okay, anybody who knows Gene, and I don't know him like well,
Hmm.
but I know him well enough that I've been around him enough times and I've had conversations throughout the years and different stuff.
Hmm.
That record is him in a nutshell, because he puts on whatever he wants to put on
Hmm.
and doesn't care what anybody says or thinks.
Right.
And that's him.
Right.
That's it. So
This is what
there's
I
great,
want. That's what we're putting on here.
right. There's
Yeah.
great stuff. And then there's weird stuff. And then there's goofy stuff.
Yeah.
So,
And then there's I'm Living in Sin at the Holiday Inn.
come on. I mean, you had to put Cher on there
Like,
somewhere, right? Seeing
that's
her
right.
at the time, figured, man, I gotta work her in on this.
And here she is 3 years later on a Meatloaf record. So,
Right. Yeah. I mean, so
yeah, crazy,
it
crazy times. Let's just put it up to that.
is Paul Stanley, and
Yeah.
anything he's done, his songs, his phrasing, a lot of the things he does, it just resonates with me more than any of the other guys. So
Mhm.
when I'm sitting there thinking of stuff, every so often I channel him a little bit and go, okay, what would he do on this? Yeah, and he would do whatever it is, and that's what if you listen to the part right before the solo in Feel the Sensation, come on, feel it, baby. I mean, that's Paul Stanley in a nutshell. I mean, that's
Right,
just,
right.
so
Yeah, so do we have a new one, WWPD, or would it be WWPSD? What would Paul Stanley do? We have to
right,
make T-shirts now. What would Paul Stanley do?
right. And that, I,
Well,
I,
yeah,
I,
I'm
I
even wearing my Kiss
think,
shirt today.
you know,
Yeah, yeah.
to,
I do that same thing. I have them on that same.
right,
It's even though Jeans was really the only one I ever really owned,
right. I got
and
you.
then that's why I married my wife, is because she had the Ace Frehley record,
That's awesome.
and it wasn't just Ace Frehley. She had Styx records, but what Styx record did she have?
Wow.
Equinox.
Oh my God. Another great, once again, that's another
Oh,
great example of a band that we talk about that, you know, become big and popular with
yep.
Babe and all that other stuff. But you go back to Crystal Ball and you go back to Equinox, and I mean, that stuff is just great
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. And the Equinox is one of those records that I think a lot of people know songs by them, and they don't realize that it came from that, and that
Correct.
Tommy Shaw was not on that.
Correct. He
So
was
it's kind of an
right.
interesting thought where you're like, well, do you know where that one came? No, I don't. It's kind of like, oh, Benny and the Jets. Do you know the lyrics? Benny
Right.
and the Jets.
Right.
So I'll keep moving along. Oh, oddly enough, I'll keep moving along, and we'll talk about that.
Yeah, so that one there is pretty much just more just a drifter song.
Hmm.
That's all. Just coming in touch with reality, and you know, where do you want to go in life is pretty much what that is. And wherever it takes me is pretty much where I'm gonna go. And so that's the
Cool.
gist of that one. That one's pretty straightforward.
And then we have Love and Pain.
Yeah, so Love and Pain goes together with another song on the record called Me and You.
Oh, Me and You, which is track number 9. Yeah. Tell me about both of those then.
So those two songs were kind of written. So Me and You was written in a Paul McCartney Beatlesque type of way.
Gotcha.
Anybody who's familiar with the Ram album,
Mhm.
any of the stuff before he became, you know, big and popular with Wings and stuff like that. So in between Beatles and that, there was always these little ditty kind of songs on there. And I always wanted to have one of those little kind of songs where, without me saying I love you, which she does a million times, I put it in the sense of where would I be? I find myself in you. Like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
what
Mm-hmm.
I've become is because of you. So that's, I see myself, me in you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just kind of mixed the words up in a Paul McCartney type of a thing with his little, you know, just a little acoustic guitar with overdubs. And
Yeah.
I just figured if the Beatles can do it, I can put anything on there that I want. There's whatever the heck I vocals come in and out like the Beatle harmonies. And so as I was doing that, I wanted an actual ballad, but I didn't want it to stay as a ballad. Like, I wanted the first part of it to be a ballad, but once it kicks in, it doesn't go back until the very, very end. So the rest of it,
Right.
it just, it keeps going. And that's what Love and Pain is pretty much that type of thing where it starts like a Stairway to Heaven type of thing. It starts whatever. And if you listen to it, it's more like Over the Hills and Far Away. It layers.
Mm-hmm.
As each thing comes in, I add more guitars in it and different tuning of it, and it's all just blended. And that's pretty much it. And once it gets to the middle part, it just goes balls out and
Wow.
goes to the end, and then ends just as it began. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
Stairway to Heaven is ends, and she's by, and yeah. So all I do is, I mean, I just end it the same way it began after it, you know, got heavy. So
Yeah. I like those. It's kind of, it gives you a road to ride, and then you're back where you started, and now you're on for the next track, which in this case is Are You Out There?
yeah, so that was the whole concept of what I wanted to do. If you listen to the first 5 tracks in a row,
Mm-hmm.
it's really almost the same type of concept. You're going from one extreme to another, and then you're going to the third one, which is Nighttime Magic. Then I'll keep moving along, and then after you're like, oh wow, man, okay, these 4 songs. Now I need to chill out for a second.
Rein it in.
Right. And then there's Love and Pain. So then you go, okay, first side's done. That's official. So the second side starts. That one I got from Thin Lizzy. Everybody knows that it's from Thin Lizzy. I wanted a 2-guitar attack, similar to Waiting for an Alibi.
Yes.
And the lyrics are all about Phil Lynott. I basically took a lot of the lyrics, like Suicide. A lot of the titles, Dancing in the Moonlight is in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fighting is in there. That's another Thin Lizzy album.
That's cool.
Instead of He's Just a Boy, which there's a Thin Lizzy song, Renegade.
Yes.
But He's Just a Man. I just altered a lot of how Phil would probably write the song. And once again, if anybody's familiar with Thin Lizzy and ever got to see them, I was fortunate enough to see them in 1977. I was just a kid, but at least I could say I saw them. Mm-hmm. And any live stuff you ever heard, one of his big famous things, "Are you out there?"
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
Every show, several times a show.
Wow.
And so I thought, Are You Out There? That's it. And then I put Dancing in the Moonlight because I wanted, you know, what happened to this guy? Why did he end his life? You know, I didn't understand. He was such a genius that I didn't understand why he would want to end his life, whether it was on accident or purpose or not. So I thought, I'm literally writing this whole song around that concept, and that's what I did.
Outstanding. Thank you for that. That's
welcome.
I can't wait to listen to it again now. Because man, I've been into Thin Lizzy for years. Are you still there? Let's hope. There you go.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. I mean, I've been into Thin Lizzy for years as well, and some of the things that eluded me was the very early stuff, like
Yeah,
fighting, and Thin Lizzy and the Vagabonds.
right,
Um, it was it was pretty much uh, Jailbreak, and
right.
then I got into some of the other ones, and that time frame that you're talking about is like Bad Reputation time, like right,
Yeah,
77 in there.
yes. So
Yeah.
once again, that's the same concept. Once again, is like you got fighting, jailbreak, Johnny the Fox, and Bad Reputation. Those are their elements, their bases. When it
Yes.
was said and done, and Brian Robertson left the band, they were just searching for one guitar player after another, and then they come up with Chinatown, Black Rose, Renegade, and Thunder and
Great,
Light. So those
great
are all great
records.
records, but they all have different elements because they have a different guitar player
Mhm,
on those as opposed to the other four.
mhm.
So for me, I took a lot of the base of it off of those first four, but added some of the newer types of lines that he would say. So yeah, that's that song is it's different.
Yeah. No, I don't wanna this is kind of interesting. Now you've got me wondering, that isn't where Cold Sweat got their name.
It is where Cold Sweat got their.
All of a sudden, I got to wait a minute.
It is
So if
absolutely.
anybody this is what I wanna say too is if anybody hasn't listened to Thunder and Lightning by Thin Lizzy, it's a pure metal record. It is Thin Lizzy at their most metal.
Oh, absolutely. That, in my mind, as much as Metallica and all the rest of them,
Mhm.
that Thunder and Lightning record set the stage for everything to come. That thing is just
Yeah,
heavy. Just it never stops. It
yeah,
just it's an incredible record actually.
yeah. It really
But
is.
yeah, that's
Well,
where
that's where Cold Sweat's name came from.
we were all big Thin Lizzy fans. I mean, almost everybody in the band, probably except for maybe Eric because he was
Mm,
younger. But
okay.
me, Chris, and Mark especially were like, "Oh my God, Thin Lizzy, Thin Lizzy, Thin Lizzy," and yeah, that's pretty.
Oh, yeah. It's I'm just trying to see if I can find it here. I know I've got
And the funny thing is when you think of the title, Breakout, it's
yeah.
not breakout into a cold sweat. It's the simple fact of jailbreak. In the middle of it goes breakout.
Yes.
That's where the title came from, not breaking out in a cold sweat. That's too obvious or too common.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah,
There you
there.
go.
Yep, that's a great record.
I mean, look at this. I mean, come on.
Exactly. Who was doing that before them? Right.
It's like I'm like, this was my brain in high school. It's still my brain.
Yeah. I
You know, it's
a lot of
still
memories with those records, I'll tell you that, especially that one.
yeah, what a
Man.
great and it was produced oh, do you know who produced this?
Oh yeah. Chris Sangarides, is that who it is? Yeah, I don't know
Very
if I
good.
name uh properly or not, but yeah.
That's how I've always said it.
Yeah.
That was one of the weird things
Sangarides,
too about different
right?
bands and things and what they did, like, when, Scorpions in 1990 put out, um, um, Crazy World,
Right.
and
Keith,
they've been working with Dieter Dierks that whole time. 1990, they put out Crazy World, and they work with Kevin Olson.
right.
Judas Priest has been working with Tom Allom for
Yes.
over a decade. Boom, 1990, they put out Painkiller, and it's produced by Chris Sangarides.
Yes. It's
You're like, "Oh, okay, so it's all different now. Okay, okay."
yeah, right.
And
So
what a
it's
damn killer record that was.
right. It's the same band, the same kind of concept, but you're
Mhm,
coming from a different point of view
mhm,
and with a different everybody, don't realize that, engineering and producing and stuff like that, sometimes it makes a huge difference
mhm,
of the outcome,
mhm,
people's backgrounds and what did this guy do and what did that guy do and how is he going to translate,
right,
Painkiller's a great example. Thunder and Lightning and Painkiller are two probably the heaviest metal records. Not that those bands were supposed to be metal or not metal,
mhm,
but those two are such heavy heavy records from front to back. You just sit and go, what were these guys thinking for these 2 records?
And how cool to now think about both of them being produced by Chris Sangrides.
The same guy. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. So sometimes I think that bands need to think about that and look at that to sit and go, okay, what do we really want to sound like? What do we really want to go for? How do we want to achieve this type of thing? Well, a guy like Andy Johns produces like this, and a guy like Eddie Kramer produces like that, and a guy like Chris Sangrides produces like this,
Mutt Lang.
like that. I mean, Bob Rock produced like that. You go down the line, and you got to find that right chemistry.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. Wow, dude, I'm blown away. And even what is it? The what do you say about a woman? Or Hell Hath No Fury by Rock Goddess. That was produced by Chris Sangrides.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah. Well, there's another little British band there.
Yep.
That came and went. I remember when it came out, and I remember they had a little buzz and a little this and that and da-da, and then poof, nothing.
Right. And the album's pretty good. I listened to it recently because I found a copy. I may go back and get it. I don't know. I found a copy of it with the original album cover artwork.
Oh, nice.
And I didn't realize that.
Oh.
And it was a certain amount, and I was like, it's a little more than I'd like to spend because I don't know how many times I'm going to listen to this.
Right.
I hadn't heard it, which it's a good record.
Right. But it's early 80s chick metal. Is that like a phrase? I don't know if that even exists.
Well, it's an all-female band, which I'm in love with, which I almost said something earlier, when you were talking about KK being out of Priest and now doing KK's Priest, which I think that's great because Priest is doing great with Richie. Rob Halford's like, he's got so much material written already. I mean, he's got riffs in his head out the ass. And so they'll never run out of material. KK's doing great things with KK's Priest. It's broadening the spectrum of both of those bands in the world. You know what I'm saying? People are like, oh, we have KK's Priest. That's cool. So he's still doing something immediately.
Right.
And he's got Ripper Owens with him bitching.
Right. It'll be a different sound. He already knows what that's going to be like because they've already done a couple of records with him. And so he wants to go down that road.
Yep.
Which is great. So it's a little bit left of Judas Priest, which is good. It opens up further possibilities and further avenues and stuff.
Yeah. So, and Richie helps them with the things he's written to do that. And then the thing I was going to mention about KK's Priest, they're taking Burning Witches out on the road.
That's great.
Burning Witches on the road. I love those women. That albums are cool.
Yeah, that's another example of thank God there's still bands and there's still guy bands and there's still girl bands, I mean, keep it going, keep it moving. I don't care what type of music it is, but at least everybody is still trying to do stuff and
just keep it moving forward, right? I mean, that's the main thing.
That is the main thing. Exactly.
And start getting to where we can even things out. That's what I always said. I don't know why women ever had to go through any shit about can they rock? Will they rock? What? You can't do this. Nobody's going to buy it. When we know how much more passionate women are than we men, you know, I don't know this firsthand. I'm not a woman, but I can view it.
Right.
They don't say hell hath no fury for no reason.
Right. Well, the part of it though is you gotta step further out and say, as much as the Runaways, the Go-Go's, Girl School, you're going down the line all the way up to Burning Witches and all this other stuff is all great and fine. The problem is all of the, how do I put it? The puppet. I call it the puppet, and that's just because I feel that, that all of them, not that they don't have talent and whatever, but girls are trying to make their way in the music business. And you have other girls that are literally scantily dressed, or they're doing pop stuff, or they're doing things. It's like,
Yeah.
look, you're setting women back because you're not sticking along the lines of all of these bands that rocked, it's just I think they're in competition with themselves.
Yeah,
Does that make sense? They're
it
not in
does. It
competition with
does.
guys. They're in competition with the the Britney Spears, the
Mhm.
Pink, Shania Twain, Faith
Yeah.
Hill. I mean, I don't care what genre or whatever you're talking about. All these different Kelly Clarkson,
Uh,
Miley. You're talking about
Miley.
these Beyonce to everything under down the sun
Mhm.
is going in this direction for girls, but you've got this other stuff going in a different direction. So they're not
Mhm.
fighting guys, they're
Right.
fighting their own people
Yep.
because they can't decide who wants the boob flash or who wants the butt flash first. I mean,
Yeah.
it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
They're competing against each other is what it is. So
Yeah. I saw a comedian recently that was talking about certain situations, with, in regards to men and how we view women and how we're like, you look great. You look fine. You don't need to do this.
right,
When we're in the middle of this, I don't care about this. If
right,
we're doing this, it doesn't matter.
right. They don't
You're
see it.
doing that because she did this and you think you need to do that or be
Right
that.
there, it is.
You're like,
That's
no.
exactly right. You could say something and you could be honest about it,
Yep.
but it never seems to be good enough. So then it goes one thing further, and then they're arguing or competing with the other person who's willing to do that type of stuff. And you sit and go, well, you're not arguing or you're not up against men because men don't do that.
Right.
Guys just want to rock. They do their shit and they da 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 and blah 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 blah. Don't care
Right.
who they are and what capacity they are. They just do it and they're done.
Yeah.
Girl, it's never enough. So she takes it a little further and goes a little further and goes a little further, and one's outdoing the other one. And that's why they don't get anywhere because they're
Yeah.
beating each other up.
Yeah. And that's a great point because you are trying to beat in that case. Let's just say in that case. I'm not saying all women. I'm just saying in that case, you're competing against somebody who's not even being themselves. They're being who somebody is telling them to be.
Exactly. That's why I call it puppet.
Yes.
There's
Good point.
there's always somebody behind the scenes pulling the strings.
Mhm.
And I don't care how big or successful they are or how popular they are,
Mhm.
but there's somebody pulling the strings behind it. Whereas in a real band, Burning Witches or whatever, Girl School or
Thunder
whatever,
Mother.
Rock Goddess to any whatever, it's
Yeah.
these people are out on their own,
Yeah.
just pounding it. Um, so how are you supposed to compete with that when you find someone sitting at a desk and, oh my God, she's got a wonderful voice, we can make her a big star. Well, wait a minute, why do they even have a program like American Idol? And why are you doing that? Why aren't you in your parents' basement with
Mhm.
other chicks or other dudes or other whatever the story is and honing your craft and you pound the pavement like everybody else?
Mhm.
What makes you think you can sit behind a desk and then go to Hollywood? Oh my God, this is perfect. This is what we need. Yeah, because they're telling you that's what you need
Right.
and they're pulling everything. But if people wouldn't watch that and people would be back to reality and sit and go, wait a minute, that's not how you become a singer, or that's not how you're in a band, blah, 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 blah. And you get rid of a lot of that stuff, then everything changes.
Yeah. That's a good point. When you say that they're by themselves too. I
Right,
mean, when they're these artists that get chosen on a show or whatnot, they're on their own. It's just like you said, you're not in a room like we are in our bands.
right,
We're in a room with the other people who are holding each other up and you're
right.
you're
Who are you going to listen to? So, in
Mhm.
other words, say I'm beep, 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 Ryan Seacrest and blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
or Simon Cowell or whatever, da, 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 da. And you're all by yourself and you're going, oh my God, I've wanted this my whole life. Well, you're only 22 years old. Oh, I know, but I've wanted about. Do you think for a minute that you're going to sit and go, well, wait a minute, here's how I want to do it. I got out of this and I'm going to do this. Whoa, see you later. You basically are just, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And then they tell you where you're going, what you're doing, what to sign, how to this, when to dress, where to dress, why to dress, blah, 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 blah.
And what not to do.
And what not to do. So it turns into this big, huge puppet show.
Yeah.
And I hate to be like that and sound like that, but that's not,
That's the truth.
Let's go back to the beginning. I mean, do you think Sonny and Cher, did Cher leave Sonny to sit and go, hey, I'm going to go on American Idol because I've got the talent you don't?
Right.
Bullshit. They did it together. Whether she was the face or not, it doesn't matter. You're doing it together. Aerosmith starts out in a basement. This band starts out in the garage. This band, this artist. When did it change to being so simple and easy for anybody to go and audition for something? And once again, another example, and I hate to use this example, but I will because he's my friend. Roy got turned down on whatever it was that he auditioned for. They said no, he wasn't whatever. And I thought, are you out of your freaking mind? This guy is one of the most incredible singers on the planet. And you're going to tell him that he's not? Come on. Now that alone, just that small example is enough to sit and go, wait a minute. I don't buy any of that crap.
That goes right back to why the hell they put some of those people who have absolutely no reason to be there.
Right.
And they make them look like fools.
Exactly. Well, the one little, I don't know what he is. And I hate to, I'll apologize ahead. I don't know if he's Oriental, Korean. I don't know what it was, but he came out with the one thing and everybody laughed and his song became kind of big because he was off. He didn't win or something. But his little puppy little song or something, I can't even think.
I can't even remember the name of it, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So what you just did was you took someone and you embarrassed them and humiliated them, but then they could turn around and say, well, we made him a lot of money and he became big and famous. Well, wait a minute. All the wrong reasons.
Right. How long is that going to last?
Right. And it only lasted a brief little thing.
Yeah.
It's today's modern corporated world.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Do you remember a compilation album? I'd almost pull it out, but I want to make sure I get through these with you because I shouldn't keep you too much longer. But do you remember an album in like 74 that came out? It was a Warner Brothers album called Heavy Metal. And it had MC5, Black Sabbath, Deep Purple, Uriah Heep, Delaney and Bonnie.
Wow.
Van Morrison, Eagles. Yes.
I remember something like that, but I never did remember the title. I remember they would put those compilation records out and they were really great stuff.
It was great stuff, but it's not heavy metal.
Yeah.
You're like, it's some dude with a stogie. I always do that. The kids love it. It's heavy metal. It's whatever. Just throw it on there,
But anything to promote those bands. All the bands, everything. How are they supposed to get exposure?
Yeah.
Back then and stuff. So
yeah. It's kind of weird. Just kind of weird.
That's interesting. I remember those.
Yeah, go ahead.
Those are crazy. I remember some of those compilation ones. I never really remembered what some of the titles were, but I always remembered some of them that had Black Sabbath and Uriah Heep and different that was crazy.
Unfortunately, it's down over there. I'll send you a picture of it though. I'll have to hang with me after the show and then we'll get some information. But I'll send you a picture of that one. What I did too is I created CDs of it, and I put the regular records, the listings together, and then I added my own. So because Kiss wasn't on there.
Right.
Thin Lizzy's not on there, but they were out at that time. So you're like,
only bands on certain labels at that time.
That's probably absolutely right.
Yeah.
Probably right. I think, trying to remember if Dude Grove was
Like I know a British label, Vertigo, was
Yeah.
distributed here by Mercury or something,
Hmm.
and so there would be bands that were on it over there,
Hmm.
and then a compilation would come here and they'd have a couple of those bands, but they didn't have all the other main bands because they weren't on that particular label.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because that, of course, first thing I go to is Thin Lizzy that was on that.
right.
You know, that's the first one. It seems like I bumped into another one though that I remembered, and then I was like, oh, I didn't know that.
Right. And I think Black Sabbath was Vertigo too. I
That's a
think,
high possibility. Yeah, because it was. Uh,
but I don't know. Maybe that's just some kind of a label that
yeah.
was in Europe that just got distributed
Hmm.
by different labels across America.
Could be like Nems. Like
Yeah,
I,
exactly. NEMS, right.
yep.
Exactly.
Because I've got my Black Sabbath Paranoid Nems version
Yes,
is what I've got.
that's what it is. It's NEMS, right.
Yeah.
Probably distributed by Warner Brothers here in America. Right.
Yep. Yeah. Kind of wild. Boy, I love talking to you about this stuff. Let's talk about the last three songs because we already talked about Me and You. So Sweet Ellie Mae.
So Sweet Ellie Mae is pretty much derived from an angel. Once again, the tower.
Yeah.
I took it kind of in that vein. And what I did was I just mixed it to having a split personality female.
Wow.
Good girl by day, bad girl by night. That's pretty much the gist of it. Is it real? Is it fake? Who is this person? And why are they like that?
Mm-hmm.
And this the male of the story, is it real or is he dreaming this?
Oh.
If you listen to the lyrics and stuff, it's every during the day it's one thing, at night when he goes to sleep, she turns into something else. So, but
Interesting.
speaking of that one's we're gonna possibly do that as the fourth single, and the next video, hopefully here within the next hopefully month or two.
Cool. Now,
That's
what was the third single?
what's that?
What was the third single?
The third single was Love and Pain.
Love and Pain. Okay, good. All right.
Yeah.
And then you have City on the Edge of Forever.
Yeah, so City on the Edge of Forever is my weird way of paying tribute to Star Trek.
Dude, I'm okay. All right, hold on. Okay. This just went weird. Okay. Okay. Have you started watching they have that series of the 55 years of Star Trek?
No, I
And
have.
I'll be ding danged. One of the major things they were talking about in that first episode was that and how the guy wrote it and then it was rewritten and he was pissed as hell. And oh my God, that I
Yes,
read it. I'm like, is this? I just watched about that last night.
that's
Dude,
awesome.
go ahead, tell me.
So I wouldn't say I'm a necessarily a Trekkie per
Yeah,
se,
yeah,
but
me either.
I like their first movies that they did. Everything after it becomes like a Star Wars thing where God, they just have no end in sight and it just
Right.
whatever. But I'm a big fan of the first three series, the
Mhm.
original 1960s series. And I'll never forget when I saw that episode, I thought it was one of the coolest things that they had ever stepped
Mm.
into. That I was like, wow, this is unbelievable. And then,
Mhm.
they go back in time and Joan Collins and the funny thing about that is I actually got to meet Joan Collins and
Oh wow.
I wanted to say something to her so bad about that episode, but I felt it just wasn't appropriate because I didn't know how she would
Right.
feel about it. So I met her and I had her sign something for me, and I did and say, "Hey, tell me about the Star Trek episode." Anyway, so
I've been there, done that. You're like, yeah.
and
Mm.
and the thing is the Star Trek series had really cool sounding titles
Mhm.
for their episodes, but
Mhm.
one of the coolest ones I ever thought was the City on the Edge of Forever. That just paints such a great picture to go,
Mhm.
really, where is that? What is that?
Right.
So I made up again a combination of more Beatles and Queen, where I
Mm,
layered all of these guitars and I put keyboards on it and rain chains and all sorts of subtle different things. And these vocals are just spread across the whole thing to just give it like you're floating in the clouds.
right.
And I just wanted something different. So that's my
See, this is I really appreciate you going through these because it's great to have a even a visual point like we're doing where you're like I always go back to, and I've done this before on the show. People might get tired of hearing me say this, but I go back to a Boston song when one of their maybe their it was on Walk On, I think it was, and they had a track, and I'm like, yeah, okay, it's a ballad, okay, okay. And then I heard an interview with Tom Scholes, and he's like, well, it's kind of like For Me and My Son. I'm like, oh,
right, right.
okay,
Right. You can sometimes some of the material doesn't come across the way that you think it does. And when
hmm,
someone semi explains it,
yeah,
you look at it from a different picture or a different light.
yeah,
And
Be-
that's what most of the songs on the record is when anybody's ever
mhm,
asked me and I say something, oh, okay, I get because sometimes you kind of have to be vague,
yeah,
you know. But when you tell a background of it, like that particular Star Trek song, anytime I ever listen to it, it just takes me back to coming up with it from the
hmm,
Star Trek thing, taking the whole idea of, Queen and all those vocals and how I put it all
oh
together.
yeah,
So it sets a different picture of it.
yeah,
So,
that's awesome.
yeah,
Standing in the Rain is the last track, which I really enjoyed this track as the last track.
that's why I put it as the last track. So if once again, we talked about those classic records that has a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Mm-hmm.
And what I try to do is I try to rearrange and make the songs work as the listener's going up and down and through it. When you get to the very end, the whole concept behind that is basically I call it standing in the rain, but it's actually saying you're shit out of luck.
Mm,
Is the phrase I use my own way of saying now you're standing in the rain. And the reason is it's basically your shit out of luck because I got the idea after seeing the movie Candyman.
oh yeah, yeah,
I remembered that movie.
yeah.
When I saw it in the movie theater when it came out, it scared the living shit out of me. I was just I walked away from it. I was by myself and I just went into this movie theater, I believe somewhere in
Oh,
Universal City out in California when I was at the time. And it scared the living hell out of me. And I said, man, I've got to write something like scary, something that's like that concept was great.
mhm,
Was that guy real or not real?
mhm.
Fabrini Green was like this lore, this folk, and this girl did not want to stop. It's like leave it alone. So
Yeah,
I took a lot of the concept of the movie with the sky burning and all of the different elements. And I basically said, in this world of pain, you got yourself to blame. Now you're standing in the rain because basically you only have yourself to blame. You're shit out of luck. Why are you screwing with something?
yeah,
So I wanted something that was different and I wanted a heavy riff vibe. And then
yeah.
the abrupt ending was what really does it because as you're going along, and it just stops. I got that from the Beatles, obviously. At
Oh
the
yeah, obviously, yeah,
he's so heavy,
yep,
and it
yep,
just stops. Right.
yeah.
So
Good call.
yeah, so that was done on purpose actually. And then the thing is, if you have a, a repeat thing, so
Hmm.
you get to the end and it stops. Bum, bum, it goes right back to Little Miss Lonely. That sets
Nice.
the whole concept right back up again. So it's yeah. So
That's
it goes
awesome. You're like the Lord of the Rings, man.
well. My whole thing is that I wanted to try to capture or recreate something old school with more modern type of stuff in it, but with older elements like those older bands. I mean, I'll never forget listening, you know, to some of those records, and then you sit and go, man, that was freaking great. And you put it back onto the, you know, I wanted something like that where people listen to it and go, wow, okay,
Just,
well, it's all right. It's, you know,
yeah. Let it roll again. I mean, I've talked about great albums like that. And it's funny that you mentioned the uh, the Paul Stanley track, Hold Me, because it's like that's the way it is for albums that aren't great. You know, now we both listened to that song. We were young enough at that time that we can have a nostalgia to it.
sure.
You know, I can listen to Living in Sin by Gene Simmons. I can listen to that record because it's nostalgic and I will just listen to it. I dig Level Headed by Sweet.
Same.
Was it the most disco thing they ever did?
Yep.
Yes. Was it the most mamby-pamby fucking album they've ever done? Fuck yes.
Yes.
But
But
at the same time, it's nostalgic. So I swim with that. I'm good.
yep. I totally agree on that too. Level Headed is one of those records too. They have, you know, the first song is commercial and it's good and poppy, and then Love Is Like Oxygen's in the middle of the record, and then they go up and down into this really crazy, strange
Yes.
thing. And when you get to the very end, you flip it back over and everybody's dancing,
Yep.
California Nights. I mean, that's it back up again. So yeah, I mean, that's
Yeah. But doggone it, were those ballads gorgeous. I mean,
yeah,
for the romantic in me,
yes.
Dream On, come on.
Dream On's a great song.
It's
Yes.
one of the most beautiful things you can say to a woman. It's just
Yep.
like, this is exactly what I want to say to a woman. I just dream on, just
Right.
relax, just be cool. Just,
Right. Unfortunate. What's great about that is back then it was great to do all those kinds of things. So Paul Stanley does it, and Sweet does it, and uh, Ted Nugent tried to do it, or this tried to do it, and they all kind of did their own little, you know,
Mhm.
cheap trick voices. You know,
Mhm.
okay, everybody's. The problem is once the '80s hit, and the '80s and the '90s, it was such an oversaturation of all that stuff that now trying to do that, you can't get away with that hold me, touch me concept anymore
Right.
because people are going to go, yeah, I don't, romantic or not,
Right.
it's it's been done to death. The Because of the '80s, that every band, including, you know, will be just as guilty. Cold Sweat did it, Poison did it, Warren
Motley Crue.
did it, Motley Crue did. I mean, Skid Row did. I mean, you could
Yep.
go every band from the '80s slash beginning of the '90s,
Warrant.
all of them.
Yeah.
And so it became such oversaturation that now, if you try to do something like that, I thought, well, Sitting on the Edge of Forever and Me and You, okay, they're different. They're not, heaven isn't too far away, or, you know, whatever that was happening. So those are different. And then Love and Pain, I thought, well, shit, here, that's a ballad, but
Mm.
it's a different ballad. It's a layered ballad, and it gets
Mm.
heavy. And then, you know, so I tried to do different things. It's hard because everything's been done,
Right.
you know. So there's no new expression of Dream On or Hold Me, Touch Me, because it's not 1978 anymore.
Right.
And you're not putting a record on that sits and goes, well, you wouldn't normally hear that on a
Mhm.
radio or
Mhm.
anywhere for that fact,
Right.
unless you bought the records. So you take the Paul Stanley solo record home because you're a huge Kiss fan,
Mhm.
and you're playing it, and the first track's going, cool, cool. Oh man, cool. Oh, cool. You get to the seventh track, I believe it's the seventh or something like
That's
that.
probably about right.
What the hell is this?
Oh, yeah.
And then you move on, you go, oh shit, now we're back to the regularly scheduled. So, you know, but back then, the only way you heard it was from the record.
Right.
Nowadays, you can go a list just like we just did from the top 10 to 15 bands that came out in the 80s.
Yeah.
They all did it.
Yeah. Yeah. It was
So,
interesting too when I went back, you know, you could step back. Maybe that might be part of a subject we could talk about. And when they put out, remember they had the commercial, of course, back in the when MTV was real. Um, and the guy jumps out of the plane and he goes to the door and hand delivers the monster ballads,
oh yeah. Oh my God.
right? So these are all, you know, everything from Steelheart to Warrant to Motley Crue to whatever, you know. So you have all of these just like you're talking about. But then, you know, I started thinking about it. I'm like, no, you know, I'm a big fan of 70s, you know, so I'm going back into my childhood and listening. I'm like, whoop, 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 wait, whoa, wait a minute. These are all, oh, well, I grew up with these, you know, Man I'll Never Be by Boston
Oh
from the
yeah.
Don't
Right.
Look Back. My Love, right?
Right. Paul McCartney.
Paul
Right.
McCartney. So you start thinking about all these and you're like, oh shit. Yeah, no, they started these back then.
Right.
And these guys are finally catching on and woo, kaboom. And you're like, you know, REO did it, you know,
Yeah.
and then,
But I think, like I said before, I think the difference is that you didn't have every A&R guy in every record company starting in the 80s pushing it down everybody's throat, and every band had to have one of those. So
mhm,
the examples that you used were early. You got to think My Love. Wow, that's 1972, right? You know,
right.
fucking okay, that's a one-off type of thing. Wow, Paul McCartney's getting sentiment. Oh, that's cute. Da, da, da. Then you fast forward and you go to the next one and you go to the next one. I mean, even
Mhm.
Chicago had it.
Yep. Yep.
Uh,
Uh,
God, I can't even think of it, but you know, that big one.
No Tell Lover.
It's the one after that. They had it too. Uh, oh, you're the inspiration,
You're
or
the inspiration.
right. So then you go a little further and you keep going further. By the time you got to the 80s, you thought, well, okay, this album has this on it and this artist has
Mhm.
that on it, and you don't think much of it.
Right.
Once the 80s hit, holy crap. Now every band has to have a ballad or some kind
Yeah.
of a sappy love thing and this and the other, and it just exploded everything. And
Yeah.
so now it's passe, I suppose. I don't.
Well, and the trouble with it was is it came down to, you know, people were leaving bands like Gary Richrath leaving REO, and that had a couple of other reasons too, but you know,
Right,
he's like, Is this what we're doing now?" Because
right,
I'm you know, I'm back at 9 lives is really where
exactly.
and you know, and even
Right,
it got a little mm,
right. It's like what we talked about earlier when a band changes.
yep.
So sometimes it's beneficial,
Mhm.
monetary wise or any other
Right.
popularity. Aerosmith's a great example of that. I would have never, ever in a million
Mhm.
years, ever thought Aerosmith would do the stuff they did later. And
Mhm.
I understand it and I get it. But if I was some of those guys in that band, I would have probably been leaving just the same, and so on and so forth.
Mhm.
Now, I get it. They all stuck together. It's just you can tell that
Right.
it goes down one person's vision, one person's road, and everybody else follows it.
Mhm.
Well, REO was Kevin Cronin. All of a sudden, he's writing "Keep on Loving You," and then he starts writing this and this and this. And Gary Richrath's probably going, "Dude, do you have any idea? I started this in 1971. That we were a blues, you know, a badass little band,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
suddenly this sappy little puppy little thing." And I just for me, that's where I draw the line
Yeah.
for the Aerosmith stuff, for the REO Speedwagon, for
Mm.
whatever band it is. I feel once you start to lose your way because you do it for a different reason,
Mhm.
hey, you could be successful. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it made Aerosmith millions,
Millions.
millions, and way bigger. But my integrity means a lot more to me than the monetary and what you're going to be known or labeled as.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, live by the sword, die by the sword. Led Zeppelin was a great example. When John Bonham died, I don't care if Simon Phillips to I don't care who it is. They could have gotten any drummer they wanted, continued. They were going down that road of commercial for
Oh yeah.
or here it goes. You can tell it was going to happen. All my love and all that. Oh shit. What the hell's happening? Drummer dies. They bury it. They end it. Robert, you want a solo career and you want to do Sea of Love and Down by the River, and I don't give a shit what you do. You do it your own way. Jimmy, you'll do your thing. I'm all for it. But when you take a band that spent all those years that have that bulk of work and you just throw it up in the air to go, you know what? We're going to do this. I have trouble with that. It's hard for me to, money or no money.
I mean, the Who went on.
Right. The Who went on, but they didn't turn around and start writing, you know, all sorts of whatever. Pete Townsend wrote whatever he was able to write and whatever he felt. And when they were done, they were done. You know, I kind of feel that way kind of with the Rolling Stones too. You know, how much more commercial did they really get? They really didn't. They kind of stayed.
I mean, yeah, they always had a style that could be
right
throughout. You know, it was kind of it's so weird that they're a British band, but you're kind of like, it's like an Americana. It's like, you know, whatever you want.
So you could see those kinds of bands, but then you turn around and you take the other types of bands and you just sit and go, you know, I always wondered, why didn't you live by the sword and die by the sword? You know, Aerosmith, and I know I keep harping on them and stuff, but they're a great example because I loved Aerosmith and I loved all their stuff up to when they stopped, when they broke up, when the band was, Joe Perry was done, then Brad Whitford's done. They tried Rockin' a Hard Place with two other guys, you know, Crespo and whatever his name is.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay, let it go. Let it rest. Let time go by. Trust me, your stuff is going to come back around again. But they didn't do that. When they get back together, they start right out of the gate of doing all this other shit.
Yeah.
They go, what? And to me, I would rather be one of the guys in that band that walks around like Jimmy Page or Robert Plant and sits and says, find something bad that we did and I'll acknowledge it. But you can't because they stopped.
Yeah.
So Aerosmith would have been the same way that here's our bulk of work. You can't say anything bad about it because it's great shit.
Yeah.
Now you can.
Yeah.
Journey is the same way.
Oh, well.
That same thing.
Yeah.
Leave it where it needs to be. Stop thinking that you have to go and do something modern or commercial or typical or whatever. And that's what you become known for.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. All the other stuff kind of gets erased. I mean, that was, I guess that was the only really good thing about rejuvenating Walk This Way with Run DMC. It was like a way to update that and keep that in the loop. And say, that's from way back.
Why not go down that road?
Yeah.
You know, saying like you started it. Okay, great. Now you've got people in the 80s that are going to know all the Aerosmith stuff because of the rap and because of the this and da. So come out with something that's worth a shit, old style, old school, and you'll continue on. Don't turn around and change it, songwriters and so on and so forth, because you're going to be just like everybody else.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And happen.
So you were not a fan of Permanent Vacation at all, or?
I was not. I think there's probably one. What's the song? Can't Stop Messin'. Was that?
That's a later one.
That was on Pump, right?
Maybe it might have even been on Get a Grip.
Yeah, it might have been Get a Grip. Okay, so I like. To be perfectly honest, I think there's 3 songs of later Aerosmith that I like. Monkey on Your Back.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Can't Stop Messin'. And the other one, Eat the Rich.
Let's see.
That's
Oh, Eat the Rich. Yeah.
that's
Well,
that's pretty much where I draw it, just because it.
I love it when you do that. You've done it. It's so beautiful how you naturally just go, that's where I draw the line. You're like, oh, that's where you draw the line. Could draw the line.
I know
I love it.
I go through that with a lot of people. People are like, "You're kidding. Why is that?" Well, because I don't want to have a gray area. I don't like gray areas. Like, I'm not going to sit and say I'm a big Journey fan for
Yeah.
Sender I Love or Be Good to Yourself or something.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do it. You want to do Where Were You, or you want to do, Line of
Mm,
Fire, or you want to do, La Do Da, or stuff like, hey,
yeah.
I'll do that stuff all day long, but I'm not going to do that other stuff because I don't feel that it's
Hmm.
heartfelt and believable.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I,
They changed a lot. I mean, there was a lot of big change in there. I mean, I played those. I played Girl Can't Help It and Be Good to Yourself in '86. I played those on the radio when I was a DJ. And, um, I felt that there was some good stuff there. Did I buy the record? No.
right,
But, it was, it had an energy to it. So I was still okay with that. When Aerosmith put out, I'll still remember sitting in my buddy's basement listening to Dude Looks Like a Lady for the first time. And then I'm like, oh, okay. And I got into the record and I liked it. I like it. I like um the subsequent record, but then after that it just started to fall apart for me. But
right,
those two albums I liked them. There's a lot of good stuff that I like on those records, but you
right,
know, and that's the beauty of, where you are with what,
right,
right?
right.
And yeah, that's okay. I mean, I still love all the,
Sure.
I love all the old. I'd rather listen to that,
Right.
you know.
But it's like we talked about earlier. A good song is a good song.
Right.
So at the end of the day, I will admit, I don't care who it is. I mean, I've heard songs from Pink or
Right.
whoever, whatever, that are good songs.
Yep.
Avril Lavigne, or
Yep.
I don't care who it is. A good song is a
Mhm.
good song. When
Right.
I say I draw the line on something, it's just because I feel there's a fine line between a good song,
Mhm.
integrity of the band, of what you
Mhm.
started.
Yeah.
Where do you want to draw the line to say heaven's on fire? I mean, it's
Let's put the X in sax.
exactly. Okay, I get it. They're poppy, or they're commercial, or they're memorable, or I get all that. But
Right.
I also remember growing up in the 70s, when you had stuff like that.
Mhm.
You had stuff by Leif Garrett, and
Yep.
you um
Rex
Don,
Smith.
and you there was there was room for all of that. They didn't come from being in the biggest band,
Mhm.
in the 70s, and being in Kiss, and then going, we're going to put a song out called Let's Put the X in Sex. I mean, come on.
Right.
That's where I have to see. That's where I sit and go,
I get you. Yeah. Yeah, there's a big that that's a big sticking point for a lot of people. When Creatures of the Night came out, I was thrilled because like you, they lost me. And I'm like, I didn't want to let go of that. I mean, let's face it, 78, that was a huge year for Kiss fans. They
yep.
they not only put the one well, I mean, say what you will about the crap movie, for
Hey,
Halloween.
I watched it just the
I
same.
watched it. I own it.
Me too. And I
I
re- literally sitting there waiting in front of the TV for that movie to come on. I'll never forget that. That was one of the biggest highlights ever. And then I remembered, I was sitting there. It felt like forever. Oh my God. Is the band even going to come on? Because the first, what, half an hour to the first, with commercials,
It's like a shitty Godzilla movie.
right? The first 40 minutes.
Yeah.
So yeah, you don't even see the band, but when the band came on, my eyes were glued. Oh my God! So you're right. '78 was huge for Kiss,
Yeah,
and I loved
technically
it.
they, as I said
And then they
yesterday.
come out in colors
Yeah, yeah.
for the next year.
Hmm. Yeah. And technically they had 6 pieces of vinyl that came out that year. So they had all 4 of the solo records, and then they had the double platinum album, which had re-recordings of classic songs, which were more in studio like the live
Uh-oh, I'm
album.
losing your sound.
Oh, you're losing me?
I
Hello,
don't know
hello,
what
hello.
happened. Someone keeps calling me, and I'm losing the
Oh, I
audio
see.
now.
I see. So do you have me now?
Now I can't hear you.
Okay. Hello, how about that? Hello, 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 hello. Nothing yet? Can't hear me? Hello, how
Uh-oh.
about that?
Can you
got
hear
now?
me?
I hear you.
Yeah, but I can't hear you.
That's weird.
Yeah, I keep getting a phone call, and this time the phone call here, it killed the mic.
Wild. Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. Okay. Well, we can end now. And then I will keep in touch. How do I say this? Hold on.
I'm going to try as best I can to read your lips.
I will type. We can end here. Oh, really? An error. That's weird. And then
yeah, that's fine.
And we'll get back in touch. This is great. I can hear you. Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome.
Contact me again if you want to talk, down the line.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for having me on. I really, really do appreciate it. It was great talking to you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
So cool. I'll keep in touch. And then
okay.
Everybody, thank you everybody for being here. It's been awesome and a fantastic show. This is probably the most animated I've ever been. So it's great. All right, everybody, you guys have a great...
It's funny just watching you.
I know, right? Well, it's such a wonderful...
A lot of movement. Hopefully, I'll talk to you again
Valentine's.
soon.
Happy
Thank
Valentine's
you so much.
Day.
I'll talk to you soon.
You got it, buddy.
Thank you.
You got it.
Appreciate it.
You betcha. Okay. All right, folks. Thank you for hanging with us. That was a great show. We had a really awesome talk about all that stuff. So I'll be back in about 35 minutes or so to be on the Go Game Go show. So hang tight. Me and Jeff will be banging out another great show. And this is my other official way of telling Papa Pete, thank you very much for sitting in for me on Go Game Go last week while I was over at the Glenn Hughes show. So everybody, take it easy. Have a great rest of the Valentine's Day. And I'll have a quick review coming up soon of that Glenn Hughes show where I was hanging out with Chip Zanuff and the guys from the band. A really, really good band of guys, and had a great night. Both shows were a lot of fun. Glenn Hughes was killing it with those guys. What a great band he has. So I'll get my photos together and we'll do that. In the meantime, remember this, Generation Landslide. Check it out. Ruling the Street Scene. Check out the song. I put a link in down below. Be sure to like and subscribe, and then hit that notification bell so that I can make sure that when I get a show ready, you know when it's coming. Also, do the same for those folks out there that you enjoy watching and listening to. If they've got some great content, just, what's it hurt to subscribe if they're really doing it well, and show them your love. So I'll put this back up. You guys have a great evening and take it easy. Can you dig it, folks? Take care. Till next week. When you step out your door, remember you're in everybody